Judgy, how you doing, kid? I heard. Billboard. Slow. We'll get there. You'll get there.
because of the presentation. And then, because I think there's something, right?
Oh, thank you.
Good evening, everyone. This is Kelly Beatty coming to you live from the Chelmsford Senior Center for the spring version of our annual town meeting. It's April 26th. It's springtime out. Springtime, as you know, is when a young town rep's fancy turns to thoughts of town budgets, and that's what we'll be covering tonight. This is the time that we'll be debating and discussing and hopefully passing the fiscal 2011 town budget. We have a warrant article with 26 articles on it. That's on the warrant. 2 of those won't be discussed. They've been withdrawn, so that leaves 24. I do not think that we're going to get through all 24 tonight. I was talking to Town Manager Paul Cohen earlier today, and he hopes to get through, maybe down to about the first 16. That would get us through the budget, through the capital improvements, and through a number of other important items. And then leaving until Thursday night, Articles 17, 18, and 19, which will be covering possible funding for renovations on the north and center town halls. Now, before we get to those town halls, we're going to be discussing the annual budget. As I said, this will be Article 3. Before the articles get underway, we'll be hearing town reports. And sometimes those reports are pretty perfunctory, but we're going to get quite an extensive collection of them tonight. We'll hear from, among others, the Town Hall Utilization Committee, which will be giving us the background on why the Center and North Town Halls need renovation, what's in store for us there. Also, the Economic Development Committee will be talking about their drive to sort of get Chelmsford out there and their new slogan, Chelmsford Gets It Done. So, on to the articles. Article 3 will be the budget itself. This year, for the first time, the projected budget submitted by Town Manager Paul Cohen will top $100 million, $101,023,021 to be exact. Now, of that, $45 million, or about 45%, will be for the Chelmsford Public Schools. That represents an increase of 4.6% over last year's budget. There's $9.6 million in there for public safety, $17.7 million for insurance. This has become quite a hot topic, both at the state and local level. Insurance is taking an ever larger part of our budget. That $17.7 million represents a 3.6% increase over last year. So we'll see how that goes down. My sense is that Paul Cohen, now in his, I believe, 4th year of preparing these budgets, has become fairly seasoned at it. So I think you can expect to see a fairly streamlined process here. We'll also, of course, be hearing from the superintendent, Dr. Yeoman, about the school's budget. Article 7 will be the capital improvement budget, which is a fairly modest $2.5 million this year. I always love going through that list to see what little chestnuts you can find in there. I did find, for example, $350,000 to replace a sander, a backhoe, and a street sweeper for the town. This equipment eventually does wear out, needs to be replaced. There's $150,000 for interactive whiteboards and so forth. The applause that you hear in the background was for the Chelmsford Community Band, which serenaded the town meeting reps beforehand. Then Article 8 will be the projected purchase
now recognizing
of the
a quorum,
9 Alpha Road property for the
to join me in the
DPW. So,
Pledge of
on to
Allegiance.
Moderator Dennis McHugh, the Pledge of Allegiance, and our meeting
I
tonight.
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you very much. As I usually do, I'd like you to please note the 4 fire exits so that if there were an emergency, the 4 exits are at the 4 corners of the hall. As you may also know, this meeting is organized by the selectmen. Articles are placed on the agenda by the selectmen, department heads, and petitioned from registered voters. The warrant is posted. Which advertises the agenda of the meeting that we are about to start. We need a motion from a moving party on each warrant article to make the warrant article active, and then the proponent usually explains the intention of the petitioner. We're open for questions and answers after that point. Questions and answers are not debate. No rhetorical questions would be permitted. No cross-examination questions. And the moderator will decide what a rhetorical question is and whether it's improper. Finance Committee will then be asked for a recommendation on the article. Board of Selectmen will be asked for a recommendation. And then we're open to debate. You're allowed to say anything that's relevant to the matter in discussion. You can curtail debate at any time with a motion to move the question, which requires a 2/3 vote. Motions for reconsideration can be considered tonight for motions that are voted on tonight. Motions for reconsideration will not be considered on Thursday for articles that are voted on tonight. Town Council is available to answer any questions you may have, and welcome to ask him. We do have, if we could have a moment of silence. D. Lorraine Lambert died, unfortunately, on November 19th, 2009. Lorraine was a library trustee from 1984 to 1996, town meeting representative from Precinct 3 from 1989 to 2008, as well as an election worker. So I'd ask you to participate in a moment of silence. Thank you. Also, the school department and the town have non-resident speakers who are experts that are intended to provide detailed answers to questions that you might have in the question and answer period of any debate. On behalf of the school committee, Kathy McWilliams, school business manager, Bruce Forster, technical director. On behalf of the town, Ted Luder, informational technical coordinator. A vote, ask for a raising of hands for those who wish to permit these speakers to speak to you. They're not residents, so they don't have a right to speak. So those in favor, please raise your tickets. Opposed? Unanimous. I have a motion by Selectman Dixon to waive the reading of the constable's return. Any discussion? All those in favor, please raise your ticket. Those opposed? Unanimous. I also have a motion by Mr. Dixon to waive the reading of the warrant. We'll be addressing each warrant article by the motion under that warrant article in full. Those in favor of the motion, any discussion? Those in favor, please raise your ticket. Those opposed? Unanimous. I'll take the moment to ask everyone to turn off their cell phones so that we don't have interruptions during the event. You can't take the microphone. Excuse me, Linda Fall as well was a town meeting representative that participated in our meeting for many, many years, and I'd like you to honor her with a moment of silence as well. Thank you. Under Article 1, I have a motion by Mr. Dixon that the town vote to hear reports of town officers and committees. Mr. Cohen?
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Good evening, everyone. We're here tonight under Article 1 to bring reports of town officers and committees. And I think with that as a prelude, I'd like to first acknowledge that since the fall town meeting, We do have some new town elected officials who are on the executive boards of the town, and I thought it'd be appropriate to take a moment tonight to acknowledge our new selectmen, John Curlin and Matt Hansen, as well as our new school committee member, Janet Askenberg, and also to recognize the efforts of Pat Wojcik, Claire Janot, and Kevin Porter, who serve behind us. It really is a team effort, and we've all worked together over the past few months to present the materials we have for you this evening. And with that, I'd also like this opportunity to take time to introduce a valuable member of our new team on the school administrative office at our first town meeting, Kathy McWilliams, our school business manager. And as many of you are familiar, she replaced Bob Cruikshank, who served this town ably for years. I would also like to take time at this point to also acknowledge a senior department head who will be his final town meeting in his role at the community. For those of you who aren't aware, Fire Chief Jack Parrow informed me formally last Friday that he'll be retiring early October, and so this would be his last budget with us after 16 years with the community. I'd like to take a moment to acknowledge Jack's efforts. Okay, on to reports. We have 4 reports this evening that I'll be presenting to you basically for no more than 5 minutes from 4 major committees who at this time are really planning the cornerstone of the future of our community. We'll start off with a presentation by Jim Lane of the Master Plan Committee. He'll be followed by Dave Duane, the chair of the Permanent Building Committee. Following Dave will be Steve Roberts, who chaired the Town Hall's Utilization Study Committee. And then finally, we'll hear from Mike Kowalik of the Economic Development Commission. So with that, I'll turn the microphone over to Jim Lane, who'll give the report on the Master Plan Committee.
Thank you, Paul. I'd like to first just offer some congratulations to all the re-elected officials, town meeting reps, and board members and committee members, as well as the newly elected town meeting members and boards and committees. I'm here to offer an update from the fall town meeting on the master plan and our progress. We're about 15 months into the process now. And as you'll see up there, the Titanic is moving forward. Full steam ahead. First off, let me offer a definition of our definition that the committee has been living by since day one. The master plan serves as a guide for future development of the community. It takes a long-range view of how a community should look and feel based upon a 10 to 20-year horizon. The plan identifies broad, town-wide goals, as well as specific objectives and strategies for implementation. And I read that only because there are many different interpretations of what a master plan is. This is the definition that we've been living by. It's governed under Chapter 41, Mass General Law, Section 81D. The Planning Board is required to prepare the master plan document. In this case, they've chosen to appoint a very, very good committee of 9 members. The Chelmsford Master Plan update will consist of a vision statement, goals and objectives, land use and zoning, housing, economic development, historical, natural, cultural resources, open space and recreation, transportation, infrastructure and facilities, and the all-important implementation. I wouldn't be standing before you today if it wasn't for the people that you see up on the screen here. Very, very talented group of people and very hardworking. So without further ado, it's myself, who's the chairman of the committee, Philip Iliopoulos is the vice chair, George Zaharoulas, who's the clerk, is somewhere in this room, David McLaughlin, Linda Prescott, Jackie Hoonjan, Sheila Pichette, Peter Robson, Judith Tavano, our advisor, Evan Belansky, the Community Development Director, Vivian Merrill, who takes our meeting minutes for us, and our partners, Northern Middlesex Council of Governments, Beverly Woods and Jay Donovan, who have been right there with us in every single meeting with all the debates, taking good documentation for us and going through all the data. So our number one goal since day one is to maintain transparency through this process, and we've done an excellent job doing that. We've had 5 public input sessions to date. Each one of those had a different topic. It started off with a vision quest to set goals and objectives, to get aligned with what the town's vision will be in 2020. We also had a business community public input session, economic development, transportation, infrastructure, and facilities, natural, historical, cultural resources was held in October. I'll share with you a very important date. September 16th will be our final public input session, and it will be right here at the Senior Center, and it will be to review the draft documents. So we plan on releasing that in early summer, so you'll have all summer to read it while you're on the beach, and come in with your questions and recommendations for the fall. We interviewed over 30 stakeholders. We had over 30 publicly posted meetings. We had about 105 committee hours just to review data and white paper. We have both the Town of Chelmsford website as well as the NEMCOG website, where we have draft documents available for your review. We've also started every meeting with open session. We have public input forms available on the town website. We have a blog. We've provided updates via the town meeting, Board of Selectmen and Planning Board meetings. In addition, we've also had a posting in the in-town report. We've appeared on Politically Incorrect Show as well as Town Talk, and we've provided an update that you'll see tonight in your in-town report as well. And I won't read all of these bullets. I will just direct your attention to the last bullet on the screen. It's extremely significant. Our goal was to adopt a master plan that would have consistency amongst all the other plans. It's one of particular interest is the affordable housing document that's being worked on presently. If our master plan document is not in sync with the affordable housing plan document, we're not going to have a productive document at the end of the day. So, a couple of other documents, open space and the economic development document as well. So we wanted to make sure that we stayed aligned with that. With that, I'm going to turn it over to Philip, and he's going to give you a prelude to some of the things that you'll see in the document.
Thank you. We thought it would be helpful tonight to actually share with the body some of the recommendations that the committee has come up with thus far. And as Jim pointed out, these recommendations have been worked on in conjunction with stakeholders like the Economic Development Commission as an example. We've got recommendations as a committee under 4 sections thus far of the master plan: land use and zoning, natural resources, housing, and economic development. These aren't final recommendations. You'll probably see these recommendations in the final draft, but then that will be subject to review by Board of Selectmen, Planning Board, certainly the residents, this body, so that hopefully you'll bring your feedback to us in September. Just to name a few, one thing we've recommended in the natural resources section is for the town to work to continue to preserve our agricultural land, either through purchasing from existing farms future development rights or being prepared to acquire agricultural properties as they come up for sale through efforts such as community preservation. We talked about the concept of establishing historic districts like we have in Chelmsford Center, up in North Chelmsford as well as South Chelmsford, to try to protect those historic neighborhoods in town. We talked about a recommendation to revise the zoning bylaws, to go through a comprehensive review of the zoning bylaws, as well as to create some redevelopment bylaws. One of the challenges that the Planning Board had in the SCIPS proposal, as an example, is it was a property that was looked at for redevelopment, but our bylaws were drafted years back really just towards an eye to new development. So we wanted to try to make sure we're accommodating what we see might be more the future of Chelmsford, which is a redevelopment of old properties. We talked about looking at the 129 corridor through the business forum, the economic development forum, in speaking with the Economic Development Commission. We really looked at 129 as an area in which we wanted to provide the town with as much tools as possible I think one of the best things the town has done on economic development, and I credit the town manager and the board for that, is creating that Economic Development Commission. So to give them tools to assist them in the 129 corridor, we talked about making that whole corridor an expedited permitting corridor in hopes that that will incentivize companies to either redevelop their property or some second and third generation buildings, maybe look at taking those down and building what would be facilities that would meet today's needs. We talked about and heard from those businesses the need for ancillary services along 129, a bank, a restaurant, a dry cleaners, a coffee shop, something that employees that work for these companies can go out at work at lunchtime and get something quick to eat, or to do some certain errands that they may have. And so that was something that we heard would be beneficial to that corridor. We also talked about, at the same time, creating some design guidelines for 129 to avoid the possibility that you would see maybe a typical Burger King, not to pick on a fast food chain, but to try to maintain the quality of that corridor. So we looked at maintaining, creating some design guidelines. And we also talked about, for the parcels closest to 129 and the Route 3 intersection, right there on Billerica Road, maybe the possibility of looking at a corporate extended stay hotel that might service those companies for employees that they bring off-site from business meetings, and maybe even look at extending the height requirements for those closest properties to the highway. We looked at two particular parcels, the UMass Lowell West Campus, as well as the 66 acres that the town owns up in North Chelmsford. And we saw those as great opportunities for the town to look at open space, passive recreation, other potential uses that would be appropriate. And we felt that those two sites were really too important to bring into just this process. So one of our recommendations will be to have their own master plan, to look at those two sites and see what the best use of those parcels are. I know that the Board of Selectmen authorized a recent grant to seek money for the 66-acre parcel, and we're trying to send a message to UMass Lowell that West Campus has a lot of potential for the town, but unfortunately they have not done a good job maintaining it, so we'd like to see that done. We've looked at, for housing, we've looked at developing affordable housing guidelines, design guidelines, so that we can control to some degree the look of future affordable housing projects. And we also talked about trying to protect our neighborhoods, trying to protect residential properties by creating transitional zoning, so you don't see residential zone up right against an industrial zone, because obviously that creates problems for the residents. So we're trying to create some areas of transitional zoning to protect neighborhoods. We also think with regards to RM districts that only require a 10% affordability component, that should be raised to 25%. If a developer is going to have the benefits of an RM zone where they can create multi-unit complexes, we want to make sure the affordability component is 25%, which is much more reasonable. So those are just some examples of recommendations that the committee has already taken up. I think on most of these there's been, I would say, close to, if not unanimous consent. And we've done a great job of working together to try to build, that type of consensus before we make major recommendations. So that's a little flavor for where we're at thus far. Thank you.
Okay, I'd like to now ask Dave Duane, Chair of the Permanent Building Committee, to come up and speak for a few minutes.
Good evening. Excuse me, Dave Duane, Permanent Building Committee. This is our committee. A little background on the committee. The committee was created in 2008 by Paul, and the mission was to assist the town manager in the renovation or construction of municipal buildings via development of financial estimates, bidding and construction, project design, and actually supervising the construction of municipal building projects. The groups come in, and we have the talent on the committee to be able to give them an estimate, a time frame, and the feasibility of doing this type of work. The makeup of the committee is town residents. We have a project manager from a major construction company in Boston, an architect. I'm in industrial, I manage industrial property, and Steve Roberts from the Town Hall Utilization is on the committee as well. And our plan is when we get into projects, specific projects, we would take on temporary people onto the committee as part of those projects so that they can keep the input and keep the information flowing. The meeting schedule and venue, we meet first and third Tuesdays of the month, 6:30 at the town office building. And all our information is on the website under Permanent Building Committee. Some of the accomplishments we've had, the initial DPW and Fire Department building study. The teams between DPW and Fire Department worked on the proposals, the costs, the building sizes, and the potential locations, and as we all know, went to town meeting and it was not approved. So, second accomplishment is that per request of the Board of Selectmen and the town manager, we came up with a phased approach. And basically looking at 2 steps over 5 years, move DPW into Alpha Road initially, and then over time, finish the building. And as we know, this approach is being voted on at this meeting. The Town Hall Utilization Group came to us looking for a not-to-exceed estimate on both buildings. What is it going to take to renovate the buildings? So CPC gave us $14,000 worth of funding in 6 weeks to do the work. So we went out and secured an architect, Kang Architects, who specialize in renovation of historical buildings, and created the teams for North and Center with other stakeholders, historical committee members, et cetera, and went through a very aggressive 6-week process to come up with a cost estimate. So we developed what they call a general acceptable design, not the final design. We needed something to be able to base our costs on, so we have a basic design subject to change if we go forward, and detailed cost backup for the feasibility. We just heard from the master plan. We, for the first time, inputted the municipal facilities into the master plan. We have put in a catalog of all the facilities. There are 28 municipal buildings in the town. So we now have a catalog of all the buildings. We call it existing conditions. The beginning catalog of all the buildings that try to get as much information about them as we can, when they were built, history, size, the lot size, parking, what's in the buildings, the systems, where do we get our power from, where do we get our electricity, where do we get our water, and just a definition of the capital upgrades to the buildings over the years, trying to bring everything up to what we call existing conditions. And going through this process, we've detailed out $3.6 million worth of savings over the last decade to the town through the grants, energy rebates, and use of leading-edge technologies, i.e. solar panels. That's Gary Persichetti and his group. They've done a really great job of working what I call the process to get money for the town and get things done as cheaply as possible. And we've always had a 5-year municipal facilities capital plan. Now we've moved it out to 10 years. And lastly, what we've done is we began a detailed building systems assessment. As the previous one said, we've got a catalog. Now what we're doing is using industry standards, we're going to put a life expectancy on the system so that we can proactively start looking at when things are going to start to fail per industry standards, and we can do a little better planning for future events and try not to get caught up on things that we're not planned for. So that's really, over the last year, that's what we have done. I have to say that my first experience with any of this town business, so to speak, and there's some really great volunteers that have been involved in this whole process. The people on the committee and other people have put a lot of time in, and the town's very fortunate to have it. Thank you.
Thank you, Dave. Next, we're going to hear from Steve Roberts, who chaired the Town Hall Utilization Study Committee, and then he'll be joined at the very end by Susan Gates, who's actually going to give the experience that sort of came out of the committee for their first season in the Center Town Hall for the Chelmsford Center for the Arts. Steve?
Okay. Thank you, Paul. As Paul said, my name is Steve Roberts. I'm the chairman of the Town Hall Utilization Study Committee, and I'm going to give a quick overview of what we accomplished in the past year. Most of what I'm going to speak to is with respect to the Articles 18 and 19, but specifically supporting the efforts that went on between the committee and folks that were active in both the North and Center Town Halls and saving them as community buildings. The project started a little over a year ago. There was some proposals to take the buildings and sell them to a private entity for housing use. That was met with some opposition from the townspeople. The townspeople got up and met in a public input session, as well as through demonstrations at the town halls. And out of that, the town manager, the board of selectmen, recommended that we take a step back, look at potential long-term viable uses of the buildings, from with respect to a community-based, community-owned, town-owned uses. So Paul commenced in about early May the Town Hall Utilization Study Committee and charged us with the priorities of long-term viable models, to reach out and look for models that retain the community access, for the townspeople, and a positive and maintain the historical character of the buildings. So with that, the committee went off and conducted 2 public input sessions, several publicly open meetings with public input sessions, and concluded in the late, mid-fall October timeframe with a report readout to the town manager and board of selectmen that ended with recommendations on both the North and Center Town Halls. The uses in our charge were to not be in competition with local businesses or other activities or similar activities throughout the town. So a lot of emphasis went into both buildings, and we came out of it, as Dave Duane mentioned in his report, a recommendation to go forward and seek the CPC funding, and that's the beginnings of Articles 18 and 19. For the North Town Hall, we met with the folks that were most active there, as well as public input from anyone who had ideas, and we met, and the emphasis for the Town Hall is going to be focused on a community center. In this economy, the folks really articulated that there's not a lot of community space open to folks at an affordable price. A lot of community activities are moved to coffee houses and other community-based locations or town-owned locations, and the community center here is to focus on activities that include but not limited to what you see listed here. With one in particular we call out as our anchor tenant. You'll see later when we get into the operating expenses that we focused on an after-school program as a funding source that could be consistent throughout the year and provide a majority of the operating expenses for the North Town Hall. But outside of those 2 or 3 hours after school and on nights and weekends, the building would be open as a community space for rental space for community-based organizations, historical displays can also be housed in this building, and quite a number of other ideas that came forward to the committee. And again, the focus was to look for spaces that are not in conflict with other parts of the community. And so some of the key benefits is that there is no similar community center that exists in town that is open to the townspeople and available for any use, as I mentioned in the earlier slides. The proposals in both the North and Center were to be projected to cover the estimated operating expenses, independent of taxpayer dollars, to operate as an independent entity of the town, and to cover their operating expenses. And so there was a lot of emphasis on drilling into the ideas as well as the operating models that was being presented to the committee. We had financial experts on the committee that work with us to come up with these models, and what you'll see is a very conservative approach, read out from our town hall, our town committee, but certainly there's a lot of opportunities. And a lot of research also went in within the community centers here. They went to locations. We visited a few of the ones listed here, as you see: Danny's Place in Acton, Tewksbury's Youth Center, Amesbury Youth Recreation, North Andover Youth and Recreation. There was quite a number of models that the committee went off and worked with and met with to really vet these ideas. And out of that came the proposal for a community center for the North Town Hall. For the center, there was a lot of great ideas. The predominant one from our input was focused around the Chelmsford Center of the Arts, and as you can already see and attest to today, it's taking off as a very true testament to the hard work of both the folks who brought that forward, as well as the town hall study wanting to push it forward as a pilot for proving the operating model proposed there. And as Paul said, Susan Gates, who heads the Chelmsford Center of the Arts, will follow me with an update on the success that they've had in the past 5 months of starting up. And as it says here, the emphasis is focused more around the music, arts, and theater. So very complementary to a community center, and focusing on Chelmsford's great need for community-based art programs, and as listed here, and as you've seen to date with many programs involved. And of course, the benefits is inherent with a community-based program, but there was a lot of work that went into this one. Similarly, with research on similar programs in neighboring towns, and a lot of work to vet that went in to prove that this is a viable option. So based on the feedback, the Chelmsford Community Center for the Arts was formed, and the committee went on and started vetting the both operating cost models for both the North and Center. And I won't spend too much time on this because these are projections, and as I mentioned, they're projections on a revenue-based that we were taking in from similar programs in neighboring communities, as well as we took a conservative approach on both to emphasize that that there is a startup inherent growth and also the economy. There will be potential upsides, but we took the most conservative approach we could in our financial analysis. And as I mentioned earlier, the composition of our committee made up a financial expert who was also previous town finance committee member, and there was a lot of experience there. So as you can see, I'll just point out some notes. We talk about the space utilization. That's taking in revenues from different activities that could go on, both private functions like a private use of a hall, or smaller functions. And then we called out for the North Town Hall, we called out the after-school program separately, because that equates to about 40 students in an after-school program for half the year. Again, those numbers could change as the opportunity to grow that program it continues. We looked at the management of the buildings. The key thing is, how does these buildings last beyond the first year or two of interest? And so there's a lot of focus on how to organize the committees and bring together an organization that rolls up under the town manager and the Board of Selectmen's oversight. And so the recommendation of the committee was to look at advisory committees. One has been formed today with the Chelmsford Center of the Arts to look at the operating costs and model. Those, just like every town committee, is appointed by the town manager and approved by the Board of Selectmen. And they will be an instrumental part to the construction project, as well as post-construction direction for the two halls. And with that, I put up the numbers. This is available. The complete details is available on the Permanent Building Committee website, as well as the Town Hall Utilization website on the town's website. But this will be covered in more detail when the Articles 18 and 19 are presented. But this is what we're voting on Articles 18 and 19, is the cost to restore. The use was to show that we have an opportunity here to really make use of two great assets to our town, as far as the history of both buildings, but also to focus on the fact that this is in a low cost construction economy. We have an opportunity here to renovate two buildings using existing community preservation funds that we'll detail on those two articles, but certainly that there's no cost to the taxpayers additional to our contributions today to the community preservation. So with that, I'll turn it over to Susan Gates and to give a little talk about the Center Town Hall.
Thank you for allowing me to speak. I'm here to report on what we've been doing at the Town Hall, the Chelmsford Center for the Arts, and I hope that this will encourage people that both the North Town Hall and the Center Town Hall are financially viable for the proposed uses. I'm speaking as chair of the Chelmsford Center for the Arts Town Hall Advisory Committee, and the committee members, Linda Chumley, Kathy Cryan-Hicks, Kit Harbison, and Andrew Riga. The Chelmsford Center for the Arts opened on November 7th, 2009, and since that time, it's become the home of 4 artist-in-residence studios, the Chelmsford Art Society, the Merrimack Valley Chorale, Toastmasters, Dance with Tumala, which is an Indian dance company, Music Together, Chelmsford Community Jazz Band, and the Boston Estonian Society Cultural School. We provide cultural programming for all ages, from toddlers through adults, and although we're primarily a public arts institution, we provide a great setting for private events, and we've rented for several birthday parties, and a bridal shower and a wedding are booked for June and October. Both brides wanted to have their special days at our historic town hall. Since our opening, more than 150 artists have shown their work in CCA exhibits. 1,000+ people have attended CCA-sponsored events. We've raised $17,686.90 in cash from rentals, programs, and donations in only 5 months of operation. We've had more than $2,000 in in-kind donations, including website design, signage, and a museum-quality gallery system. We've achieved the goal of paying all costs associated with opening the town hall as the Chelmsford Center for the Arts, and we are, as of today, and Darlene verified this, $3,791.21 in the black. Most importantly, thank you. I was excited by that too. Most importantly, on an annualized basis, we have not only surpassed the revised projected revenue presented by the Town Hall Utilization Study Committee, but also the total operating costs of the renovated building as estimated by Gary Persichetti, Director of Public Facilities. I'll repeat this because it's important. On an annualized basis, we are already bringing in more than the funds necessary to cover all costs of operating a renovated town hall. To be specific, the total operating costs are projected to be $40,962 per year, and we are currently on target to bring in $42,000 for the year. This was accomplished by a volunteer committee of 5 with no funds from the town of Chelmsford before embarking on a major development campaign, something the committee is currently planning on. If you go to our website, www.chelmsfordcenterforthearts.org, you will see all of the programs and the events that we have had and what we plan for the future. We thank everyone who has attended our events and made contributions. We couldn't be where we are without all of you. And we believe that the renovation of both halls, of both historic town halls, is something that will be great for our community, and we hope that you'll all become part of what's already on its way to becoming a vibrant arts center by joining the Chelmsford Center for the Arts. Thank you for listening. Thanks.
Thank you, Susan, and I can really attest, it's amazing the effort that volunteers bring to the community. And Susan's being a bit modest, she's put in a tremendous amount of time making this possible. Now I'd like to call up Mike Kowalik, who's the chair of the Economic Development Commission, to speak for a few moments on the activities of the commission.
Good evening. Oh, something coming? Yes. What we're going to hear tonight is going to be a resounding theme. That this is about a partnership.
It's about a partnership with the community and with businesses. It's also about selected businesses, businesses that we identify that make a good fit for Chelmsford. So when we talk about making it a destination point, it's not for every style business. It's businesses that we understand and businesses that we are good in dealing with. To start is the membership. It's a 7-member group. A couple of individuals are town meeting reps, Joe Reddy, David Moray. Janet Askenberg also sits on the school committee. As if we use a football analogy, our chairman is Paul Cohen, just like Bob Kraft is. We have Evan Belansky serving the role of Jonathan Kraft. We also had Sean Scanlon as our liaison with the Board of Selectmen, but I guess in a trade with a player to be named later, we have now Matt Hansen joining us, and we'll take you up on the player to be named later in a little while. Another important point is our 3 state reps, Tom, Jim, and Corey, asked to join the committee. They volunteer their time, they take homework assignments, they are proactive. It's not just their name, they are doing the work along with everyone else. To them, it is an outreach, and we thank them for their efforts. When we take a look at and learning from the Master Plan Committee, from dealing with people in the community, what do we know about Chelmsford? And how can we use that to spur economic development? We look at it, we have the great retail spaces, 2 vibrant village centers. And then when you do a walk around town, what kind of business clusters do we have currently that are successful and growing? We take a look at healthcare as one example. We have Lowell General, Saints. There's talk of CVS building a Minuteman clinic. We have Harvard Vanguard. And with allied support industries, we have an MRI clinic, Zoll Medical, which actually appears in 2 categories, a medical device company. We know and like healthcare in this town. The same thing for high technology. You take a look at Kronos, Arvana, DataWatch, a number of other high technology companies. Those are the kind of industries and businesses we look to attract to fill in the vacant space. We also look at trying to take advantage of the nanotechnology center at UMass Lowell. Nanotechnology is more than an industry. It's a core technology that can grow into several industries. That's the type of tack we are taking. And the other part is one of the secrets of Chelmsford. We are an award-winning town. We have awards for our community, and we have awards for our business acumen. If you take a look at it, if you can recall, in 2007, we were in the Money Magazine Top 100 Places to Live. And it doesn't stop there. You take a look at it, Mass High Tech Council voted us in the top 6% of business-friendly communities in the state. The list goes on. And one important one is the Globe 100 publishes the best and most innovative companies to work for in the state of Massachusetts. Last July, there were 4 in Chelmsford. As I've talked to Rita and Chloe about, it wasn't Lexington, it wasn't Waltham, it was here in Chelmsford. So what do we do with all this? Well, how can we market Chelmsford? Next slide. What are we? We look at ourselves as an award-winning, disciplined, hard-working town. We know how to get it done. The cornerstone of our slogan and marketing effort is Chelmsford gets it done. It's a takeoff on a number of award-winning campaigns over the last decade. You take a look at Nike, just do it. You look at Coke, Coke is it. L'Oreal, I'm worth it. Amex, whatever the line is, forget right now. Yeah, it's one of those. Don't leave home without it. And what you see here is it allows you to imagine yourself in the situation and allow us to continually define and redefine what we mean by getting it done. It is a proactive moniker. When we take a look at our logo, it was designed by O'Neill Associates here in North Chelmsford. It's about a partnership. It's about our location. We are at the crossroads of community and commerce, both literally and figuratively. You saw our awards. We understand how to deal with both of them. We also are geographically at the corner crossroads of 495 and Route 3. And that's how we came about it. So what we have as we start to wrap up what we've done to date is we look at clusters. What are we good at? We target businesses. We will be proactive as a community to foster those relationships. So what are we doing next? Well, Joe Reddy, Brad Marmo, and Janet Askenberg have scheduled a May 13th breakfast meeting with commercial brokers that represent a variety of properties here in town. Our state reps have already agreed to come. We're bringing in the Director of Business Development for the state of Massachusetts. It's an exchange of ideas. What's it going to take to separate Chelmsford from everyone else? We are reaching out, finding out how we can help them help us. Brad Marmo is also fielded a survey. We fielded it a couple weeks ago, should be having results in the next week or so. It went out to businesses here in Chelmsford. What do they like about Chelmsford? What don't they like about Chelmsford? How can we make it better? The next part is how do we convey this message in a snapshot? What do we have here? Oh, it's our website. Again, O'Neill Associates, through the efforts of Laura Schweitzer, have designed our website. The Cornerstone is an award-winning town. We've listed our awards. So any relocation manager, all he has to do is do a print screen and take it to his boss and say, let's go to Chelmsford. Our next steps in dealing with the community is to go local. Work with the Chelmsford Business Association. How can we improve the local business climate? What can we do better? How can we get landlords involved? Because we can get the brokers involved. We can get the word out. But if the buildings don't meet the needs of the business community, they will not come. So we've talked about why won't they come. We've talked about brokers. We've talked about a variety of planning and zoning issues. But the landlords also play a vital role in making sure the buildings are up to this century, not last century. So that's what you see here in this slide about our next steps. And I'm almost finished. And that's it. But the player to be named later, we're taking our attack from the NFL draft, and we want that player now. And we're taking the first pick in the draft, and we select George Dixon. George, please come and join our team.
Thank you. That concludes our presentations under Article 1.
Under Article 2, actually, I'd entertain a motion to accept the reports of the town officers and committees. Any discussion? Hearing none, those in favor, please say aye or raise your tickets. Those opposed? Thank you. Under Article 2, I have a motion by Mr. Cohen that the town vote to amend the fiscal 2010 operating budget voted under Article 3 of the annual town meeting held April 27, 2009, amended under Article 3 of the special town meeting held August 17, 2009, and amended by Article 5 of the annual fall town meeting held on October 19, 2009, by transferring from line item 9A, snow and ice removal, the sum of $299,500 to following budget line items. Number 2, municipal administrative expenses, $65,500. Number 6, public safety personnel services, $149,000. Number 8, Department of Public Works personnel services, $15,000. Number 9, Department of Public Works expenses, $13,000. Number 11, municipal facilities expenses, $42,000. 16, community services expenses, $15,000. Mr. Cohen?
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. This is amendments to the current fiscal year budget, and it's traditionally the first item we act upon at town meeting. Since we last gathered here 6 months ago, we progressed through the bulk of the heart of the fiscal year, and at this point we're making our projections on what we need in terms of adjusting funds to balance out. The good news is we don't have to dip into our stabilization fund or cash reserves to finish out the fiscal year, and that's really fortunate by the benefit of the fact that we had a rather mild winter in which basically it got warm as we head into March and April. It resulted in a lot of flooding rains, but it really didn't result in a lot of snow and ice removal operations. So we ended the year with a snow and ice balance of just over $300,000, and we're proposing to use $299,500 of the balance to address the major areas that we have. We're running a $100 million operation, and basically we're looking at a 0.3% adjustment to what we had figured when we finalized the budget last October. The first area is municipal administration expenses. We're looking for a transfer of $65,500, and it's really to address three major areas that we've incurred during the course of the year. First one is in the area of the Treasurer's Office, the area of tax title activity. Basically, unfortunately, due to the economic conditions, there's been more activity in the area of tax title work in terms of recording and leaning properties in the collector's office. Right now, we had a $20,000 budget. We've expended $31,000 so far, and basically we have the last 2 quarters to resolve. There'll be a formal advertisement going out within a few weeks, and then the final recording of securing the town's tax assets. And that'll basically cost us, we think, another $32,500 to get through the fiscal year. The next area is in the area of legal work. We have a $195,000 legal budget. We expended $162,000 through the end of February. We project that we need about another $25,000 to finish the remainder of the fiscal year. We've had a couple of notable litigation cases during the course of the year that were costly and time-consuming. One having to do with the mobile home park. We also had to address the ongoing matters with a couple of 40B projects, and so we're rounding out that activity. On a typical month, for example, we received today's bill for the month of March. I think our bill was less than $8,000. So again, the activity really depends upon the nature and timing of litigation. And then the last area is in the area of IT, computer maintenance. We have a budget of just over $50,000. We're just under $50,000 expended, and we think we need about $8,000 to finish the fiscal year. The second area is in the area of public safety personnel. We're looking for a transfer of $149,000 to address the fire and police budgets. Basically, the fire department has a $3.7 million operating budget. We project a $74,000 shortfall by the end of the fiscal year, and the police has a $4.5 million. We project a $75,000 shortfall. Really, the areas of shortfall come from three major components. One is if we have worker injuries where we've had a couple of firefighters and police officers out on injured duty. We have to fill those shifts as well as compensate the people who are out. We also had a number of unexpected early retirements in both safety departments, and basically that we have a run-out cost of accumulated time for when those people leave, as well as the overtime shifts until we can bring the complement up to full speed. And then the third one is we did have one of our officers, police officers, over and performing a military operation in Afghanistan, and again, we have to cover those shifts with short of personnel and secure that position for when the officer returns, and the officer did return last month. In the area of public works, as I mentioned earlier, we did have a fortunate, we were going right up through February. Our snowfall was ahead of the traditional average in the year, and as I mentioned, and as you certainly all experienced, it got mild early and very wet. When we hit those flooding rain opportunities at the end of February and in mid-March, we cannot draw from snow and ice because they weren't snow and ice events. They were flooding and rain events where we put people out there doing repairs, and it did cost us into our overtime budget, which is $15,000. Generally, we budget $35,000 for highway overtime. We've expended about $42,000, and again, we've got a couple months to go. In the area of expenses and public works, we also had a very difficult pothole season with the mild weather coming late in the winter. Our highway road materials budget is budgeted at $75,000. We've expended almost $82,000 to date. And our vehicle maintenance, again, one that's hard to predict. We have a $115,000 budget to keep all of our vehicles operational. We've expended almost $105,000 to date with a couple months to go. In the area of municipal facilities, we're requesting a transfer of $42,000, and that really is to address the center fire station flooring by the placement of an epoxy coating that will be overseen by Facilities Director Gary Persichetti, which is basically to extend the useful life of that flooring system until we can plan, construct, and inhabit a solution for the center fire station. And then the last area is in community services expenses, $15,000 transfer requested, and that's really driven by veterans benefits. We have a number of veterans returning from the Iraq and Afghanistan conflicts. We budgeted $83,000 for the expenses. We've expended $75 to date, and we believe, we'll expend about $90 by the time the year ends on June 30th. Thank you.
Any questions for Mr. Cohen? Hearing none, does the Finance Committee have a recommendation?
Finance Committee recommends approval.
Board of Selectmen?
Board of Selectmen recommends approval.
Any debate with regard to the motion under Article 2? Hearing none, those in favor of the motion on Article 2, please raise your tickets. Those opposed? It's unanimous. Under Article 3, I have a motion by Mr. Cohen that the town vote to raise and appropriate $95,262,618 and transfer $6,000 from the Wetlands Protection Act revolving fund, $2,235,514 from the Sewer Betterment Fund, $487,310 from the sewer user revenues, and $109,013 from the Child Care Revolving Fund to defray town charges for the fiscal period July 1, 2010 to June 30, 2011, according to the following line items. Municipal Administration, Personnel Services, $1,352,716. Expenses, $867,317. Mr. Cohen, I didn't know if I usually would ask for questions as we go through these. I don't know if you want to have...
I've got a presentation. If you want to complete the motion, I'll go through the presentation, then take questions.
Great. Chelmsford School Department expenses, $45,085,662. Neshoba Valley Technical High School assessment, $1,853,897. Public Safety Personnel Services, $8,605,127. Expenses, $1,049,151. Public Works Personnel Services, $1,466,754. Expenses, $3,005,615. Snow and ice removal, $1,143,500. Municipal Facilities Personnel Services, $599,726. Expenses, $509,685. Expenses, $3,920. Cemetery Commission Personnel Services, $243,078. Expenses, $42,385. Community Services Personnel Services, $467,676. Expenses, $241,940. Library Personnel Services, $1,066,773. Expenses, $405,898. Benefits and Insurance Expenses, $17,722,723. Debt and interest non-excluded, $4,124,953. Betterment funded, $2,235,514. Excluded, $6,006,445. Mr. Cohen?
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. The fiscal year 2011 operating budget that will begin on July 1st, what we have for you this evening is a rather straightforward and not a complicated tale. Given the economic conditions, what we're proposing is basically a level services budget, which is a shortfall for saying we're just sort of rolling the calendar forward and not changing any of the operations that we have as a community in the year ahead, but we're just meeting the costs that come before us. And the major components of that are a 4% reduction in local aid, and also the final year of federal stimulus funding that's going from the federal government to both the state of Massachusetts to support the state budget, as well as some funds directly to support some of the town operations. Real briefly, a level services budget, as I mentioned, there's no change in staffing levels. We're still going to continue to operate with 11.27% fewer employees than we did back in fiscal year 2007, and you can see it's basically about 150 less people than we had at that time. And in terms of issues of collective bargaining agreements, there have been no collective bargaining agreements reached for the upcoming fiscal year. So basically what will happen is, barring the agreement the contracts that are in place will just continue into the new fiscal year until such time that agreements are reached. And if they're on the general government side, they'll be brought back here for town meeting for funding and approval. And then if the school department side, they'll be ratified by the school committee. In terms of the issue of state aid, as we speak this evening, and as it was today, the Massachusetts House of Representatives was in session today, formal session all day. They were dealing with municipal relief. We're curious to see what the outcomes of that debate and discussion will be. And also, they will be taking up the fiscal year 2011 state budget later this week. So we're very anxious. Many of you may recall when we were here last year, we acted upon what were the best counsel given to us by the governor as well as the House of Representatives at that time. And then sure enough, the state had a revenue shortfall that came in May, and then we had to come back, you recall, in August. So this budget is based on the best information that we have to date, which from the legislative leadership was to bank on a 4% reduction in state aid. What does that mean, 4% reduction? Our two major components of state aid are education aid and unrestricted general government aid. Our education aid, for fiscal year 2010, we received just over $10.4 million in education aid, and that came in the format of what's called Chapter 70 education funding, as well as funding from the state, which was not put on the cherry sheets, but was basically a way for the state to use federal stimulus funds to meet the local aid obligations of ed reform. This year, for fiscal year 11, the combination of those funds is just over $10 million, so we will see a net reduction of over $400,000 in education funding from the Commonwealth this coming fiscal year. In unrestricted general government aid, which used to be called lottery and additional assistance, similarly, we're seeing a 4% cut in that. We used to have $4.47 million. We're now down to $4.3 million. We lost almost $179,000. So combined, we have a reduction of almost $600,000 of state aid based on the latest information we have from the legislative leadership. And as I mentioned, and it's a critical point because it bears watching, this is the final year of the federal stimulus funding. How it affects the state budget, because again, the state funds local aid in the particular areas of education and general assistance. The state's budget that's proposed by the House Ways and Means Committee that's being debated in the House of Representatives this week is $27.8 billion. That includes basically $1.4 billion or 5% in one-time federal stimulus money. That sort of puts up a big caution flag for us as we look out saying, hey, wait a minute, when that money's not there in fiscal year 12, how's the state going to make up for that funding shortfall? The second component is we receive direct federal stimulus funding in the area of educational expenses of $860,000 that comes directly to the school committee from the federal funds in the area of special education and preschool special education costs. Those funds, again, are not identified or at this point into fiscal year 12. So that puts us to a big caution as we go forward, not only with the year ahead, but the following year in 2012. Our fundamental budget principles have not changed. We have a balanced budget. One is because it's sound business practice, and two, it's required under state law. Recurring revenues. Our recurring revenues have to meet our recurring costs. We're proposing, again, no funding from our stabilization fund because our cash reserves are not at the 5% level they should be at. We're maintaining our investment in our capital equipment. You heard earlier reports from the Capital Permanent Building Committee talking about 5- and 10-year capital plans. We are not veering from our continual $2.5 million, or roughly 2.5% of our budget, into capital equipment. Our priorities continue to be public safety and education, and again, the maintenance of our infrastructure. Here's some brief slides on budget history. As you can see, our budget is up by 2.76% to just over $100 million for the year ahead. Our major budget funding source is the property tax. We basically, on an annual basis, we receive the 2.5% allowed increase in the property tax, which is now $1.7 million, and we forecast $600,000 of new growth, which would give us $2.3 million. We do have a reduction in our excluded debt as we come into the town meeting of $157,000. So roughly, we'd have $2.1 million or 2.89% for forecasted increase in the property tax. The key here, we always look at trends 5 and 10 years. If you look at a 10-year trend in the property tax, there's no doubt that the residents of this community and the businesses and other property owners are paying significantly greater property taxes. Going back over the last 10 years, your property taxes have risen by over 50%. But the town's total budget has risen by only a third. So what's happened now is when property taxes were you're looking back at the start of the past decade in 2001, property taxes were roughly 63% of the town's budget. It's now 3/4 of the town budget. Significant reliance on the property tax, and that's because basically it's a cap constraint. We're doing that, and what's happening is our other revenues are sort of being cut out from under us. But the important thing to note, and I put this at every town meeting, is, well, how are we comparing in terms of our property tax burden compared to other communities across the Commonwealth? And the Massachusetts Department of Revenue collects that data because they approve all the property tax values as well as issuance of bills for all communities across the Commonwealth. And as you can see, throughout most of the decade, we were around 62nd, 63rd. Last year, we were 72nd. We're back up a little closer up now to 67%. In the issue of property tax for the year that we're in right now. So again, we're sort of lagging the overall state increase slightly. In the area of state aid, as I mentioned, on the surface, it looks like our Chapter 70 education funding is going up by 8.141%. But again, that's reflective of how the state is doling out the money. They wouldn't allow the federal stimulus money to be put on the cherry sheet. So this year, what they've done is they've reduced the amount of federal stimulus funds because they don't have as much federal stimulus funds to draw upon. So on a nominal surface level, we're getting $776,000 of additional Chapter 70 education aid. But as I noted earlier, our overall education aid is falling. In the area of unrestricted general government aid, as I noted earlier, lottery and additional assistance, you can see that's going down, as I mentioned earlier, by 4%. And also the state has cut our funding notably on the police career incentive or the Quinn bill funding. That really should be a $200,000 obligation from the state. The latest information we have from the governor's budget as well as the House of Representatives Ways and Means Committee budget has cut that funding from what should be $200,000 down to less than $18,000. So they actually cut it in half this year from what it was the year we're in right now. In the area of state aid history, and again, you can see what's going on here. We've been fortunate over the past decade, the state has raised our Chapter 70 education funding by over 40%, by $2.8 million to over $10 million in Chapter 70 education aid. Unfortunately, at the same time, they cut our lottery and additional assistance funds by $2.55 million, or 37%. And then they cut our Quinn bill funding, for which, as I mentioned earlier, now it would be a $200,000 obligation. That's been reduced by $130,000, or roughly, it's really almost $180,000 for what it would be in today's dollars. So in essence, if you look back over the last decade, our net state aid, meaning net funding as well as the assessments we get from the state, has actually decreased by over 10%, by $1.5 million than it was when this town meeting took up the town's budget back in 2001. In the area of local receipts, again, a major issue in local receipts, we are projecting a 5.5% increase in local receipts. Major area of that is motor vehicle excise. We believe that the bottom has hit in the automobile industry this year, and we are starting now to see a little bit of a bounce back in motor vehicle excise sales, so we bumped that up by a 5% figure. And that's the bulk item of motor vehicle excise. We'll also have a full year of the meals tax, which became effective last October 1st. It will now be effective for the full 12 months of our cycle. And unfortunately, we forecast we'll see some interest on late taxes. And that's because we expect that more properties will transact. And in essence, oftentimes when properties have transactions is when we actually get paid on those penalties and interest when that occurs. And again, looking over a 10-year history, you can see that our local receipts is roughly level funded to what we forecast to what it was a decade ago. Again, the big item being our motor vehicle excise tax collection, which hit its historic high of $4.78 million in 2006, is down roughly $500,000, our forecast from what we had a decade ago. In the area of other additional funds, these are other minor budget adjustments. We received support in the operating budget from supporting the sewer operations of the town, which is an enterprise fund. We're continuing to receive our repayment for the center school from the school construction funds of $379,000, and also we'll receive a reimbursement on benefits provided to the child care program that's run by the school department, which is a 6.25% increase in premiums in that program. And we're seeing some wetlands activity now, so we believe the wetlands fund will have funds to support the wetlands applications that go before the Conservation Commission. So that's the revenue side. When you look on the expense side, it's really three major areas of where the funding is going to. We've proposed to increase the Chelmsford Public Schools appropriation by $2 million, or just by 4.64%. Again, that tends to overstate the additional funding because of the fact is the funding that was there from the state, which was offline in the form of a grant through stimulus funds, we're now making sure that it's in the operating budget and therefore it shows up before you in the appropriation. We have the Neshoba Valley Technical High School assessment increasing by almost 5%, or $88,000. When you come in this evening, there were materials on the table regarding the Neshoba Tech budget, and we are joined this evening by Dr. Klimkowitz, the superintendent of Neshoba Tech, as well as other members of the Neshoba Tech staff and our representatives on the school committee. In the area of expenditures, this is sort of the summary of what we're expending, and as you can see, things are essentially level funded. Municipal administration is up by just $32,000, or 1.5%. I mentioned earlier the $2 million, or 4.64% increase in Chelmsford schools, Neshoba by the 5%, and you can just see everything else is sort of level funded, with many areas less than 2% of funding, from public safety to public works, cemetery commission. And then where you really see the dollars continue to go to benefits and insurance of over $600,000 there, and then our debt and interest going up by 5%. And again, if you look at what's happened over the last 5 years, you can see that on a 5-year comparison basis, the money is really just not going into our operations. We're essentially around 1% per year for many town departments. Municipal administration just up over 5% over 5 years. The Chelmsford Public Schools less than a 2% increase in funding over the last 5 years. Neshoba has a significant increase, but that's driven by enrollment in our net school spending requirements under the ed reform law. Public safety, again, less than 1% per year. Public works, less than 1% per year. And again, where the dollars are going to are benefits and insurance, up by 1/3 in the last 5 years to now over $17 million, or actually 17% of our budget, because our budget's just over $100 million. And debt and interest, again, that's sort of overstated by the fact that we're incurring debt on the final build-out of the sewer project, and we're using betterment monies to pay off our sewer project. And then we're continuing to hit with state assessments and overlay, particularly in the area of charter school assessments, the students attending there. So again, to spend a moment on the Chelmsford Public Schools, the budget increase is $2 million. Where those monies are going to, step and degree cost increases for $700,000, special ed tuition and transportation by $550,000. We're losing, as I mentioned earlier, $1.2 million in federal stimulus general education grant, but we are retaining 14.4 teachers that were funded through that grant this year. So you can see the 7, the 550, and the 750 come out to the $2 million for the upcoming school year. In the area of Neshoba Tech, our assessment for this year will be $1.85 million. It's an increase, as I noted earlier, of $88,000, or roughly 5%. We've got an increased enrollment of 6 students, to a total of 133 students at Neshoba Tech. At the Neshoba Tech assessment, $1.6 million we're required to spend on the state education financing laws, and above that, all that's being requested once again is the student transportation costs, capital equipment, and debt service for the facility, roughly $1.85 million total. And again, what's happening here is our costs have increased because our enrollment's increased, and what's really taking place here is the increase in our minimum contribution is of roughly $87,000 is mirroring the increase in the assessment. So there really is no additional funds being requested to support the Neshoba beyond what's been funded in the current budget. And so that's what I have for a summary. At this point, Mr. Moderator, I'd like to turn it over to Kathy McWilliams, who will give a brief update on the school budget.
Ms. McWilliams.
Hi, I'm Kathy McWilliams, and I can reiterate, just like Paul Cohen said, it's a level service budget, and we've met with several people and stakeholders when we created this budget. And I printed out all of this, so if you want to be able to read it easier, there should be a copy at the main when you first came in. And this next slide somehow didn't print right, but it was just to show exactly where the money's going, the $2 million. And pretty much it's special education and out-of-district tuition, and the step and column increases contractually with raises. Oh, I guess that's better. And we also showed a 5-year history, and we're just showing the same thing that Paul Cohen is saying, that state aid really isn't increasing. We did get a 4% increase 2007 to 2010 and 11, but it's pretty much because we do have the stimulus money. It isn't straight Chapter 70. The town share of our budget is 78%. We wanted to show you the spending trend mixes. In total, 58% is regular education and 28% is special education. And that would be like 86%, and that's pretty typical of a district this size. And it's very small, the percent on the facilities, 6%. And if you can't see, the transportation is 3%, and then admin is 4%. This is in line with the state. Here's an interesting slide. What I wanted to show here is that our cost per pupil in Chelmsford is $10,221,000. This is 2009 data. This is the most up-to-date data we have from the state system. It's Department of Elementary and Secondary Education. You can go on that site anytime and look up Chelmsford and pull down profiles and learn a lot about the district's expenses. The area where we seem to have issues with is our out-of-district special education tuition, and we're looking at that to see what could we be doing differently. Most districts, I looked at several districts surrounding this community, have similar costs. Bill Ricker, Shrewsbury, they're not local to you, but they're considered one of your comparable districts. This isn't unusual that special education costs are this high and transportation of special education is this high. I wanted to show you enrollment. What we see here is that Chelmsford isn't really growing. We're staying flat. That can be a good thing. That way your Chapter 70 is staying the same, but Chapter 70 favors districts that have growth in enrollment. We don't have growth in enrollment, but we're not losing enrollment. This is a busy slide, but I wanted you to see where Chelmsford stacks up against other communities that the Department of Education considers comparable communities. Franklin is considered a comparable community based on equalized property value and income. The income is from 1999 because that's the latest census data. But when you look at this, Chelmsford, 10,221, and many other the comp communities are higher. So Chelmsford really does well with their costs. You're getting a lot of bang for your buck. Maybe you don't feel that way, but it's true. I also spent some time and looked at your MCAS scores and ranked them compared to these other communities, and Chelmsford is in the top 3 in many instances, 3 and 4, and they have a lower cost per pupil. So the teachers of the Chelmsford School District do an excellent job. This is better on print, but I'm trying to show the entire school budget, and the FTEs, that's a full-time equivalent. It'll show you where the money is going in the current budget and the FY11's budget, and you'll see that the increase in total is $2 million. This budget contains all of our grants and revolving accounts. This way you can see what it fully costs the school district to run. It's a top line, we'd call it fully loaded budget. you only vote for the bottom line over there for that budget because grants and revolving don't get included in town appropriation. And as Paul Cohen stated, we have the restraint of Prop 2.5, and what we always have in schools are unknowns, and our special education costs and other unknowns like heat and electricity. But in Chelmsford, it seems like you've done a lot of preventative maintenance. You have new boilers, so pretty much we can almost budget the same thing because we've got so much efficiency even as costs have risen. And just like Paul Cohen said, we don't really know for sure our Chapter 70 right now, and then we also get another funding mechanism from the state called circuit breaker. We do know that that's been cut to 40%. In the previous years, it used to be like 70% or 72%. So for now, we're only budgeting 40%, and we have to absorb the rest of the cost. Circuit breaker comes in with special education students, and if you're over a certain foundation amount, you get a reimbursement from the state. And we have a legal obligation continuous throughout the year, whoever comes in. And we never know with the economy if we're going to get more children that, you know, all of a sudden can't afford tuition to a private school. So these are our unknowns. And then we try to look for FY12, as Paul Cohen was stating, we're going to lose a lot of federal stimulus money. This year we feel very privileged and lucky that the town, the $2 million is coming to us, because next FY12 we're going to struggle, because the town's going to struggle and the school's going to struggle, because it's almost called like a funding cliff. They gave us money, but then it's going to go away. So we have the risk of expiration of federal ARA funding, it's called, and the sped tuition's out because it's not easy to control that, but we're looking at maybe examining our whole special education delivery just to see, you know, if there's efficiencies that we're missing. We're going to benchmark to other communities. We're going to check it out. Then the opportunities we have, we do a really good job in Chelmsford using our buildings. We do make good positive cash flow on the building use revenues. We rent out a lot of space. At a meeting, we had the school committee. Some people were surprised that we rent rooms to Leslie College. And it's been a very good, you know, local community thing where people come in and they take a class, and we're making money from doing that. Other opportunities would be health insurance. I know Paul Cohen has really worked hard getting not union buy-in, but he's trying, and that's all we can do at this point until maybe the state ever changes the law. But we did have in our, we're not unionized employees in the school district are going to a tiered plan, and we'll be saving at least, I think, $35,000 there. So we're making the effort, and we're hopeful that more people join the tiered plan. I don't have anything else, and I'll let that be. Thanks.
Any questions for the presenters under Article 3?
Maria Carafellis, Precinct 2. This is for the new business manager for the schools. I understand that we were currently in negotiations with a contract with the teachers.
Yes.
Do we have that? Is that settled? Do we have a
No,
contract?
we're still in negotiations.
Okay. The other question was, I remember last year when we were doing budgets, I remember Bob was saying that they gave us permission to use all of our stimulus money last year for our budget, and that's how they brought back the 14 teachers and whatever they had to do. Now, when I look at the budget, you're taking your level funded budget from that point. So the new money that you're saying that you're getting this year, that's on top of what we had last year?
It's almost like taking, because we're not going to get the money for the grant. It's called SFSF, State Fiscal Stabilization Funding. That's gone coming FY11. So all that really is taking those employees that were paid out of that grant and putting them back into the budget. 14 employees.
So is that why the budget is off the amount
It's up
that it is?
750,000, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Karen DiDonato, Precinct 8. Paul, do you know regarding the Neshoba Tech budget what the if the excess and deficiency fund has been certified and for how much?
I'm going to invite Dr. Judith Konkowitz, the superintendent of Neshoba Tech, to address that question because I don't know the answer, Karen. I have not received direct information from the school on their excess and deficiency fund. Do you want to come on?
Just to address a procedural uncertainty, the chair would like to ask that the body confirm Superintendent Klimkowitz is speaking to the body to answer the questions. All those in favor, please raise your tickets. Those opposed, it's unanimous. Thank you.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Good evening. Yes, we received our E&D certification, which was submitted on October 30th. We received it approximately, I think, 3 weeks ago. Anybody that's in a regional school realizes that a lot of the time that was spent at the DOR this year was spent on assessing a tax rate. So unfortunately, many of them were very late. It was certified at $609,394. minus the $100,000 that we voted on October 13th to give back to the town so that there was no money that was paid over minimum for fiscal year 10, which will leave a balance of $509,394.
How does that $100,000 come back to the towns? Is that just put
That
into
was lowering your assessment from fiscal year 10. It was voted on October 13th, and it lowered each one of your quarter's assessments.
So we actually got
You
our
got that
percentage
$100,000 back, yes.
plus the stimulus money that we were getting back also?
Your stimulus money had nothing to do with us.
No, your stimulus money.
Our stimulus money didn't come in until 2 weeks ago. It was $143,000.
And that still comes back to us also because...
That does not come back to you. That comes back to Neshoba because it is below foundation.
Paul, I thought last year that when we voted on our budget, you said that they had said they came in over minimum but would give it back to us with their stimulus funding.
When the request came in for people to take the money, we had not received stimulus money. I don't think anyone received stimulus money till this third quarter. So to take the money, we had to take it out of E&D.
Oh, so in other words, instead of doing it through stimulus, you did it through E&D?
We didn't have stimulus to take it out in October.
Right, so it was taken through E&D?
Yes.
Okay. So this year now we're at 509 in E&D?
Yes.
And how much are you allowed to have? Is it a certain percentage?
It's less than 5%.
Okay. And can you tell us what the balance in your school choice account is at this point in time?
Actually, I don't have that figure in front of me, but I would probably venture a guess it's about 1.4 million.
Last year was at 2 million?
Actually, we used about $475,000 for this year's budget.
Okay.
We've used over $20 million from our reserves over the last 10 years.
Yeah, no, I know that. And so this year, out of your school choice, you're proposing to only use $250,000, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Jason Hanscom, Precinct 3. I have a question on the steps and degree increase of $700,000 in the school department budget. It's about 35% of your increase for this year. Just for clarification, how does that work? How is the breakdown, and where does that money come from?
When teachers go on and get like a master's, when they move forward, they're contractually, we're contractually obligated to pay them a % increase. In Chelmsford, it appears that 1% increase is $350,000. On average, steps and degrees or column movements are 2%. So that in total would be $700,000, where some places are thinking about, oh, can you do a half a step degree, but we haven't got to that type of negotiation at this point.
Has there been any talk of negotiating with the union to decrease that or reduce that to save some money?
I believe there probably has been, but I'm not privy to completely any of the negotiations that went on before me. I came here March 1st.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Hearing none, the Finance Committee have recommendation.
Finance Committee recommends approval.
Board of Selectmen.
Board of Selectmen recommends approval.
Any discussion with regard to the motion under Article 3?
Karen DiDonato, Precinct 8. I just want to say that I do support the Neshoba Valley budget this year. I do commend them for coming in at minimum. I am concerned, though, for next year, and I would like to particularly request that we have to start taking a look at Neshoba Valley very closely. All of our regional schools are having problems. Lowell Tech, if you noticed in the paper, they were having meetings between Lowell and Tingsboro and Dracut. Shawsheen Tech's having problems. Tewksbury has a bill on the floor with the Senate to try to limit the increases of the technical schools to the limitations of Prop 2.5. If our revenue is limited to that, then I think that's a very good bill, and I think I would really like our Board of Selectmen. I tried this last year and I couldn't get any support, but I would really like our Board of Selectmen to look into that and support get together with all of our other towns and really take a good look at our regional schools. These schools are great schools, and no one doubts that. They're an absolutely great asset to our towns. We just can't afford them. If they're allowed to increase their enrollment by 5% and increase their assessments to us by 5% every year, we can't afford that.
I'd ask that you keep your remarks to the confines of the motion that's before the body at this
And the
point in
motion
time.
is regarding the Neshoba Tech budget.
It's regarding this budget, not next year's budget, or not
Okay, well,
anything
it's-
going in front of the state legislature to change. We're addressing this year's budget.
That's fine. And the capital expenditure still concerns me because we still have, it's almost like every year, $100,000 capital expenditure. This year I looked at it and I think it is reasonable, but for the next couple of years they're looking to buy some vans, which I really want them to take a look at. Is it absolutely necessary? So basically, I think we really need to look at it, but I do commend them coming in this year at minimum. I think that finally, hopefully, they're realizing that as a town, we just can't afford these increases. When they presented their budget to us this year, they actually made mention of hiring teachers next year. We can't afford it. Luckily, we don't have to cut teachers this year, but if you notice what we have cut, we've had reductions year after year after year, and we're looking at, I think the number up there was 11.27% fewer employees than we had in 2007. And next year, we're going to have a reduction of 596,000. So I really think that, and ask everyone to take a look at this budget, but I do support it for this year.
Any other debate with regard to Article 3? Hearing none, those in favor of the motion under Article 3, please raise your tickets. Those opposed? It's unanimous. Under Article 4, I have a motion by Mr. Cohen that the town vote to appropriate the following sums to operate the sewer enterprise for fiscal year 2011: personnel services, $753,079, expenses, $2,210,582, for a total of $2,963,661, and that $2,593,661 be raised from the sewer enterprise revenues and $370,000 be transferred from sewer enterprise fund retained earnings. Mr. Cohen?
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. As many of you maybe recall, the sewer operations in the town are basically funded through what's called an enterprise fund, which is basically means that the funds for the sewer operation are separately accounted for, and basically their own revenues from sewer operations support the expenses for sewer operations, and they're accounted for, as I said, in that manner. Fortunately, as we come into fiscal year 2011, we approach the final stage of the townwide sewer system construction, and therefore we will be adding our final sewer maintenance technician, as well as the installation of 3 additional pumping stations. We'll also be transferring $370,000 in sewer reserves to purchase a specialized sewer vacuum truck. So in essence, the increase is directed to the additional personnel costs of just over $50,000, the sewer vacuum truck, and the fees to the treatment plant in Lowell, because all of our wastewater from Chelmsford flows into the regional plant at Duck Island on the river. Thank you, Mr. Moderator.
Any questions and questions for the presenter, Mr. Cohen? Hearing none, does the Finance Committee have a recommendation?
Finance Committee recommends approval.
Board of Selectmen?
Board of Selectmen recommends approval.
Any debate with regard to the motion under Article 4? Hearing none, those in favor of the motion under Article 4, please raise your tickets. Those opposed? It's unanimous. Under Article 5, I have a motion by Mr. Cohen that the town vote to raise and appropriate $400,000 to be used as a reserve fund at the discretion of Finance Committee for fiscal year 2011 and provided in General Laws, Chapter 40, Section 6. Mr. Cohen?
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Annually, we set aside funds to the Finance Committee to provide for extraordinary or unforeseen circumstances under general law. This year, I'm requesting an amount of $400,000, which would amount to basically 4/10 of the town's $101 million budget. And just sort of looking back historically, worked with Betty Delaney, our town clerk. The reserve fund for the last few years has been funded at $150,000, but if you went back in time, even as far back in the mid-'70s, it was funded at around $250,000 when the town had a $31 million budget. The reason we're putting the increase, quite frankly, is we don't know what's going to come out of the legislature between now and at the end of June, or perhaps even beyond that. Our state aid is uncertain. When we forecast and developed our budget, we used a 5% reduction in state aid figure. As I mentioned earlier in the presentation, the state legislative leaders are telling us that to expect a 4% reduction. So rather than reopening everything in a case of uncertainty, we just basically took the additional funding that was the 1% and we just placing it into the reserve fund at this point in time as a placeholder and a keeper at this budget. And then, as you know, circumstances do occur during the course of the year that we foresee, such as last summer we had the high school ceiling collapse. We had a severe ice storm a year and a half or so, and basically that's what the funding is there for, is in the event of unforeseen circumstances. So that's the requested action item this evening under this article, Mr. Moderator.
Any questions for Mr. Cohen? Hearing none, does the Finance Committee have a recommendation?
Finance Committee recommends approval.
Board of Selectmen?
Board of Selectmen recommends approval.
Any debate with regard to the motion under Article 5? Hearing none, those in favor of the motion under Article 5, please raise your tickets. Those opposed? It's unanimous. Under Article 6, I have a motion by Mr. Cohen that the town vote to authorize revolving funds under Massachusetts. Mr. Hayward. I have a motion for Mr. Hayward to waive the reading of this motion. All those in favor, please raise their tickets. Those opposed? It's unanimous. Mr. Cohen?
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Perhaps if the legislature is dealing with municipal relief, that one of the items they could do is relieve us of having to vote this article every year at town meeting. Basically, this current provision of state law requires us to vote annually at annual town meeting to reauthorize the revolving funds that we have that support their own operations. There has, as I mentioned earlier, there has been a proposal to basically make this a permanent change and to therefore only require changes when needed. But in essence, we've got the same funds that many of you who've been attending town meeting or following town meeting for years see every year. The first one for the town clerk's office having to do with the fees from the rabies clinics and pound and adoption fees to support the dog program. The Council on Aging, the money for the senior trip program to expend the monies to go on the trips. The police department to have the funds from the sale of the used cruisers to purchase the equipment to go into the new cruisers. And then finally, the inspection department, we contract with NIMCOG for the seals and weights and measures, which do all the scales and gas pumps and so forth. What we do is the people who pay those fees go to pay our fees to NIMCOG to provide those services. So again, I'd ask for your approval again this year to reauthorize these revolving funds.
Any questions for Mr. Cohen? Hearing none, does Finance Committee have a recommendation?
Finance Committee recommends approval.
Board of Selectmen.
Board of Selectmen recommends approval.
Any debate with regard to the motion under Article 6? Hearing none, those in favor of the motion under Article 6, please raise your tickets. Those opposed? Unanimous. Under Article 7, I have a motion by Mr. Cohen that the town vote to appropriate $2,522,000 for the following capital projects. Municipal administration. Mr. Hayward. Yes, sir.
Reading of the article.
I have a motion by Mr. Hayward to waive the reading of this article as well. Those in favor, please raise your tickets. Those opposed? Unanimous.
Thank you,
Mr.
Mr.
Cohen.
Moderator. Once again, the town's capital budget committee met this past November and December and met with all the department submittals to review a 5-year capital plan, and the committee came upon a unanimous recommendation for capital expenditures, as I mentioned earlier, would be maintained at $2.5 million. Again, we're fortunate we have a very stable committee who's been working on these budgets for years. You can see the names up there on the screen. To be real brief, we requested capital investment is $2.52 million. Our technology needs meet about a third of those costs, school technology being $582,000 of that. Public facilities is $750,000, of which $645 of that will go into school facilities. Public works is $900,000, of which roadway, drainage, and sidewalks is $545. And you can just see these numbers, and there's a couple of miscellaneous items. We're refurbishing a fire engine at $60,000. So again, we would ask your support for the town's continued investment in its infrastructure. And if you have any questions on any particular items, myself and the various department heads would be happy to answer them. Thank you, Mr. Moderator.
Any questions for the presenter? Hearing none, does the Finance Committee have a recommendation?
Finance Committee recommends approval.
Board of Selectmen.
Board of Selectmen recommends approval.
Any debate with regard to the motion under this article? Hearing none, this does require 2/3 votes. Try for a unanimous vote. Those in favor of the motion under Article 7, please raise your tickets. Those opposed? Unanimous. Under Article 8, motion by Mr. Cohen that Mr. Hayward.
Moderator, move to waive reading of the article.
I have a motion to waive the reading of this warrant article, or motion to the warrant article by Mr. Hayward. Those in favor, please raise your tickets. Those opposed? Unanimous. Mr. Cohen.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. This is the town meeting appropriation for the DPW facility on Alpha Road. Many of you were here last August when we voted the largest scale full funding project. As was noted earlier by Dave Duane, the Capital Plan Committee, we've put this project down into phases. The first phase is $5 million, which we borrow $4.6 million to construct the renovations that are needed, along with the purchase of the facility at Alpha Road. Jim Pearson should be commended. He really carried the water in terms of the presentations over the past several months that many of you may have attended, having to do with the number of budget forums and other discussions regarding the DPW facility. So with that, I'll stop, but if there are any questions on this well-versed article that's been across the community for the last few months.
Any questions for Mr. Cohen?
Paul, have we come up with a final figure yet as to what we're going to pay, what we are going to acquire, how much it's going to cost us to acquire that piece of property?
No,
Maria, for the record, would you just please?
Oh, sorry. Maria Carafellis, Town Meeting Rep, Precinct 2.
Thank you.
We don't have a final figure. What I can tell you is we've secured one appraisal that came back at $2.5 million for the facility in the land parcels. What we will do prior to closing is we will secure a second appraisal at town expense for that, and then we will sit with the property owners and present our appraisals. We also encourage the property owners to obtain their own appraisals and bring them to the table. It's the town's intent to purchase the parcels at fair market value. Fortunately, this article would give the Board of Selectmen the right of eminent domain, so that if we weren't able to agree to a satisfactory purchase price, then the board would take the parcels on behalf of the town, and then we would submit our appraisals to the court, and then pay what we believe is fair market value. So long-winded answer of saying basically we believe it's $2.5 million.
Great, thank you.
DePasquale.
Tom DePasquale, Precinct 1. The $2.5 million that you just referred to is just to acquire the property alone?
Yes.
And then what is the funding that we're going to do? We're going to vote upon in this article for the renovation?
We're seeking a total of $5 million total.
Now, would that be the complete renovation of this facility or is this just for the getting it up to code and?
It's a partial occupancy of the building to get it up to code in terms of fire, alarm, electrical, health codes, ventilation, and so forth, and to utilize it fully as a highway facility. As was noted in the discussion by the Permanent Building Committee, over the next few years, we would look at a phasing of all DPW operations into that facility. But basically, the $5 million would get us into the site and occupy it as our highway department primary operations.
And how many phases are we expecting to have for completion?
2 phases. No, 2 phases. But even in the event that the town were not to do the second phase, this is still a better investment of the town's resources than to do renovations at our current site on Richardson Road, with all the perils and investment that would be needed at that site.
And we'll have to vote on Phase 2 as well?
Oh, yes.
And do we have any projections on the cost of Phase 2?
We believe it's a similar amount. We believe it's around $6 million to finish the Phase 2. And again, it will depend upon the timing and the work that's gone on during that period of time.
So we're looking at a total of $11 million.
That's correct.
At this point.
That's correct.
Which can go up depending on cost and fuel,
right.
labor.
But part of that is we'll seek to bring that down because we'll be, as was noted in the presentations that were given during the last couple of months, we'll look to move in our sewer enterprise operations into that facility. We'll no longer be paying the $70,000 of rent for the Kidder Road facility and so forth. So our efforts would be to use whatever means possible to contain the costs and to utilize it fully. But any future appropriations would have to be brought back before a town meeting, and any future exclusions would have to be brought back before the voters. So this basically gets us to secure the asset and to utilize it as a highway facility, including the salt shed and other uses that we've described previously.
I understand there's mandates involved with regards to whoever we hire as a contractor and this guy. And in regards to these state mandates, in regards to the labor cost, does the town have any recourse into negotiating with them or any type of an amendment we can go to the state? Because I'm assuming the labor costs on this would be quite significant based on those mandates.
I think what you're referring to is prevailing wage requirements established by the Commonwealth's bidding requirements. We will adhere to the full requirements of that in terms of prevailing wage requirements. We've not seen any successful efforts by municipalities in this economic climate to get waivers from those provisions, and so I don't foresee that as a viable alternative.
So we have no recourse at all with regards to prevailing wage.
That's correct.
We're subject to that.
Right.
And do you have any estimate on the cost of the prevailing wage in regards to at least Phase 1, the $5 million?
Well, I mean, again, some estimates, depending upon whose estimates you believe, would be that prevailing wage adds a component of up to 20% on the labor cost for that facility. But again, we have no discretion there. The whole notion of the term prevailing wage is that basically the wage is supposed to be the prevailing union wage in the marketplace. That is sent to us from state officials. We put that in our bid documents, and that's what's bid out for the construction of the site.
So your estimation is be 20% of that project, 20% of the $5 million?
The labor costs, not 20% of the
costs.
entire project. Remember, 2.5 is just going to purchase it, so now you're down to $2.5 million of work, of which there'll be significant amounts of design, materials, and so forth. So, you're probably talking in a area of a few $100,000 is the additional impact that it would have on the project in terms of paying prevailing wage.
Okay, thank you.
Brian Latina, Precinct 4. Paul, have we done a wetlands analysis of that property?
Yes, I mean, and Jim Pearson, who's here as our director, Jim, want to come up and speak to the drainage and wetlands issues at that site?
Sure. Hi. The wetlands pretty much surrounds the existing building, and we'll be filing a notice of intent with the Conservation Commission for the building, the work on the building, the parking lot, on the lot, the parking lot, the adjacent lot, and any work on the 2 lots at the end of Tracy Road. But the wetlands is depicted there. We'll have it reflagged as part of our wetlands found with the Conservation Commission.
So the wetlands abut the building, and I understand there's a 200-foot buffer around that. When you describe it as a wetlands, you're talking about a swamp.
Well, some people call it a swamp, some people call it a wetland. The 200-foot you speak of is the river protection. Any work within 100 feet of the wetlands has to be approved by the Conservation Commission. In general, they allow no new impervious surfaces within 50 feet, but all work within 100 feet has to be reviewed and approved by the Conservation Commission. We're not exempt from that.
And that yellow square that I see up on the corner, is that where you're proposing putting a salt shed?
That's one possible location. It's either on that side of the bulb that you see there is the paper street of Tracy Road. It's either on that lot to the right or maybe more likely that lot to the left. That's all part of the final design, but it'd be one of those 2 lots.
Where the they call it the ballpark area on the other side of the pond, on this side?
I don't know what they call it, but one of those 2 lots, yes.
Okay. And you're going to use that building to transit from this direction, from Alpha Road, and you're going to exit the trucks out the other side? You're going to cut a hole through the wall on the far side of the building, or how do you come in and out of the building? Alpha Road at the bottom of your picture?
Yeah, do we have can we back up one? I think one more. Maybe not.
I think your line art picture, the next one on the...
We plan on adding doors. As you look at the building from the Alpha Road side, adding one large exit door on the left, redoing two. We're going to make a bunch of doors that are existing, the small doors, into 2. The preliminary design has 2 larger doors, one for entrance of the main garage and one for entrance of the truck wash.
You're going to drive straight through the building?
That's the plan, right.
Okay. My concern, I don't know if anyone at town meetings walked that property. I assume I was trespassing Friday, but I walked around the property and was very concerned about the water, the swamp, and how you might exit.
You have to keep this to a question, Mr. Latina. You have to keep it to a question.
So you would be cutting through the side of the building next to what I'd call the lake on the north side there? No?
No. No, it would be on the side that's on the Alpha Road side. I'm thinking there's 4 or 5 smaller truck-sized doors. We'll make those into 2 doors, 2 oversized doors, and exactly 180 degrees opposite. Still, we'll exit onto existing gravel/paved surfaces. We're not going to be filling any wetlands, but we'll exit on that side, yes.
Where would you be parking? I'm assuming you'd have employees parking there?
Right, the shaded area to the on the north side of the building is this plan depicts on the high side of the building.
Okay. So basically, no concern about the wetlands coming in and out of the building with your new doors, and no concern about the building with respect to the wetlands and the salt that you plan to store there?
Well, we certainly have concerns. That's why we're going to file plans, and the drainage will be directed away from the wetlands, and it'll be reviewed and approved, hopefully, by the Chelmsford Conservation Commission. But there are concerns, yes, but we plan to abide totally by the Wetlands Protection Act of both state and local.
Okay, and this is a better location wetlands-wise than the other location, in your opinion?
Oh, absolutely. We're now a half a mile away from a drinking water well versus 600, 700 feet.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Mr. Porter?
Kevin Porter, Precinct 7 Rep. Paul, I was wondering, the $4.6 million, that will be bonded. How long will that bond be, and what's the effect on our debt on a yearly basis?
We will be borrowing for a 20-year period for the project, $4.6 million. The impact is roughly $28 for the average single-family household. Right now, our debt is declining, so for the next upcoming year, the net impact will be about $14 for the average single-family dwelling in the community.
Okay. All right. Thanks.
Any other questions under Article 8? Hearing none, does the Finance Committee have a recommendation?
Finance Committee recommends approval.
Board of Selectmen?
Board of Selectmen recommends.
Any debate with regard to the motion under Article 8? Hearing none, this too requires a two-thirds vote. I'd try for a unanimous vote. Those in favor of the motion under Article 8, please raise your tickets. Those opposed? Chair recognizes a two-thirds vote.
Congratulations, Chief.
I think I'm safe for the next few articles. Under Article 9, Mr. Cohen moved that the town vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $15,500 to purchase and install replacement exterior doors and entryways at Westland School and the Byam School in order to provide handicapped accessible voting locations in the school's gymnasiums. Mr. Cohen?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Moderator. This article and the next few are what I call miscellaneous or small financial warrant articles. The Capital Planning Committee has a $25,000 and a 5-year minimum threshold for the life of an asset. The articles that are coming up, including this one, don't meet that financial threshold, so that's why they're separate on the warrant. First one is we're requesting $15,500 to purchase and install replacement exterior doors and entries at the Westlands and Byam schools to accommodate handicapped accessible entryways for voting. Why this is coming before the community is basically the Board of Health wants the voting taken out of the cafeteriums of these facilities and put into non-eating places or the gymnasiums. So basically, we have to invest in four doors at the Westland School and 2 doors at the Byam School, and so it involves the replacement of the door hardware. You have to deal with the handicapped accessible entryways and so forth, and so that's the genesis and reason for this article this evening.
Any questions for Mr. Cohen?
Thomas Fall, Precinct 7. Paul, how far is that away from the parking lot?
Gary, what's your guess from the parking area at? If I invite Gary Perschetti, our facilities director, to answer that question in terms of the distance, because Gary's really been the one who's done the on-site planning of these locations.
He's a department.
You probably have a good distance of about 200 feet, but what's being proposed also during voting is if you're aware of coming around a building, you have the generator on the side, and then as you come around, there's a fence. Within that fenced-in area during voting, they will be parking for handicap right there. So they will actually be parking right over here in
So it's basically right next to the entrance, the handicap parking?
Yes,
Okay,
only during voting. It's not a regular space during the school. That's usually part of the playground area.
How many spaces are we talking?
I think we're talking 2 right there.
With the
Yep,
zebra
and
stripe for parking, with the wide zebra stripe, am I correct for?
Yes, yes.
Okay,
Well,
thank you.
actually, it'll be temporary, but it'll be set up like it normally would. You know, the signs will be ones that will come down because they're not going to stay there permanently, unless we can mount them on a fence, but that's...
Okay, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Any other questions? Hearing none, does the Finance Committee have a recommendation?
Finance Committee recommends approval.
Board of Selectmen have a recommendation?
Board of Selectmen recommends the article.
Any debate with regard to the motion under Article 9? Hearing none, those in favor of the motion under Article 9, please raise your tickets. Those opposed? Unanimous. Under Article 10, I have a motion by Mr. Cohen that the town vote to appropriate the sum of $150,000 from the Chelmsford Forum Special Revenue Fund for the resurfacing of the parking area and other landscape improvements of the Chelmsford Forum. Mr. Cohen?
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. This we're requesting here is the completion of the maintenance and reinvestment in the Chelmsford Forum site. Many of you may recall back in 1998, the legislature granted the town a 20-year lease of the Forum to the town of Chelmsford for its use, and at the end of the 20-year period, the town will decide in 2017 under the legislation whether it wishes to acquire the asset less its capital improvements at the fair market value. The legislation provided that 35% of the monies collected from the rental, sublease, and other use of the forum go into a maintenance fund. The current balance in that maintenance fund is just under $364,000. Last year at town meeting, the efforts were made to reinvest in the ice floor and the dashers, as well as the roof was undertaken through Gary Persichetti supervision last summer successfully. So right now we're in the final reinvestment stage of the fund of $150,000 to address the parking area. Right now, it's hard to see these photos, but anyone who's been by that facility, the parking area desperately needs attention. We're looking to surface only a portion of the lot because the site was built for the University of Lowell when they were running a championship Division II program. So we're only looking to pave an area roughly of 180 spaces. And we have to address the issues of stormwater runoff as well as permitting for that site.
Any questions for Mr. Cohen?
Tom DePasquale, Precinct 1. Do we receive any reimbursement from the busing company for parking their vehicles?
Well, I would say the answer to that is indirectly. When Bob Cruikshank, the former school business manager, he and I assisted him in his last bus contract. What we designed was, in order to reduce the cost for the busing contract, we designed to have the vehicles parked in the community to reduce the transportation costs, but also by having the vehicles parked in the community, the town receives the excise tax on the buses that serve our community. So we don't get a check from there, but we do get it indirectly through the excise tax as well as the reduced cost of student transportation.
And that reduced cost, is that cost going to stay the same $200 per student?
Oh yeah, but that's yes. The answer to that is yes, but again, that's separate than this article. That's an operational decision made by the school committee.
Okay, thank you.
Peggy Dunn, Precinct 1. Paul, I think you answered, in fact, I know you answered this Wednesday night for the benefit of the people at home. Those portions of the parking lot that you do not resurface, will you landscape them so that it doesn't look like the Gobi Desert?
Yeah, exactly. We will basically seek to landscape the areas and cordon them so that it does look appropriate, because it is, as you said, it's a very visible corner. In fact, we'll also have to work with the town of Barica, because many of you are familiar with the site. Most of the parking area, and in fact, the building itself is located in Barica. The area where we put the buses is the Chelmsford portion, as it cuts linearly. So yes,
we have fewer landscaping to do.
So we will work with Barica officials to get approval on stormwater permitting and addressing issues of landscaping.
Right. Thank you.
Any other questions? Hearing none, does the Finance Committee have a recommendation?
Finance Committee recommends approval.
Board of Selectmen?
Board of Selectmen recommends approval.
Any debate with regard to the motion under Article 10? Hearing none, those in favor of the motion under Article 10, please raise your tickets. Those opposed? Unanimous. Under Article 11, I have a motion by Mr. Cohen that the town vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $15,000 to purchase and install audible, accessible pedestrian crosswalk signals in the town center.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. This is another on the second and final of what I call the small financial warrant articles. We're trying to address the town center. This is an aerial view from the flyovers that have done of all of our land areas in the town. What we're seeking to address is basically the traffic congestion in the center from the operation of the bike path as well as additional traffic in general in the center. And what we'll be providing is handicapped accessible crosswalks. What that means is that there'll be an audible accessible signal that for those who are visually impaired in order to assist them in crossing. And then the other part is that there'll be a visual countdown for those on bicycles and pedestrians and others, basically so they'll know as they venture out in there, as the crosswalk will be open, and then basically there'll be a portion through the crosswalk signal. It'll count down from 10, down to 0 as the signal tapers out. So the goal here is to avoid people getting caught in the crosswalk in the town center. So I know this is something that's been considered for a period of time by the Disabilities Commission, and we think this is a sound investment, particularly with the opening of the bikeway, the rail trail, which has just increased the amount of access through the center of the community.
Any questions for Mr. Cohen?
Kathy Tuberty, Precinct 1, great aerial shot, love it, it's awesome. But where are those going?
Basically, at all of the crosswalks in the town center.
Okay, so is the one from the library to Friendly's part of that? Because it's below the picture, but it's a very, very accessible, used all the time crosswalk.
No, there's no cross signal there.
No, maybe I can help explain. All the crosswalks that are at signalized intersections
Okay, so only where there's a light.
where there's a traffic signal, correct?
Okay. Thank you.
She just asked my question.
Okay.
Hi, Mary Gregoire, Precinct 9. I've been in the center a number of times trying to cross from the side where the Chelmsford Hotel is and then across to where the Domino's Plaza is. There doesn't seem to be a visible crosswalk there or a signal. Will there be one with this article?
That particular crosswalk, there isn't, well, maybe the crosswalk itself might be worn, needs to be repainted, but in light of the fact that it's probably going to be torn up this summer due to utilities, we probably won't repaint it. The crosswalk, the pedestrian signal that looks like, the next slide, please, John. The signal looks like that, but right now it says walk, don't walk. In the future, this is past, it'll
You
look
actually
like
can't
that.
see it. There's like a
exactly,
pole right
because the
there.
telephone pole on the way. But again,
Right.
this summer is the start of the utilities depression.
Okay.
And that will
So there'll be one
more
visible
yes.
crossing from that side.
Right.
'Cause that's kind of a difficult.
Fortunately, on your second
Place
time
to
using it,
maneuver.
if you step to the side a little bit, you do see it. But the first time users, it's a problem.
I've used it a few times, but thank you.
Nice side.
Any other questions? Hearing none, does the Finance Committee have recommendation?
Finance Committee recommends approval.
Board of Selectmen?
Board of Selectmen recommends approval.
Any debate with regard to the motion under Article 11? Hearing none, those in favor of the motion, please raise your tickets. Those opposed? It's unanimous. Under Article 12, I have a motion by Mr. Cohen that the town vote to transfer $25,000 from the sale of graves and lots to the Cemetery Improvement and Development Fund.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. This is an article submitted by the cemetery commissioners, and many of you recall that this is an annual article. This basically takes $25,000 from the sale of graves and goes to support the development of the cemeteries. Their big investment that's before them, and it's already been partially completed, is the interment wall, the niche wall. And so basically, this basically just goes to perpetual care of the cemetery.
Any questions for Mr. Cohen? Hearing none, does the Finance Committee have recommendation?
Finance Committee recommends approval.
Board of Selectmen?
Board of Selectmen recommends approval.
Any debate with regard to the motion under Article 12? Hearing none, those in favor of the motion under Article 12, please raise your tickets. Those opposed? Unanimous.
Right, we're looking for it.
Mr. Hayward?
Moderator.
Yes, sir.
Move to waive reading of the next article.
I have a motion to waive the reading of Article 13 in its entirety. Those in favor, please, any discussion? Those in favor, please raise your tickets. Those opposed? Unanimous. Whoop. Carries. Mr. Cohen?
Hi. This article is to add a section to our addressing stormwater, or connections to our stormwater system. You'll see the term municipal storm sewer system many times throughout this document, and that's the EPA guideline for basically the drainage system, not to be confused with our sanitary sewer system that we're near completion of. And this is a requirement by EPA, and basically, in a nutshell, it prevents what they call illicit, in other words, an illicit connection, an illicit discharge to the stormwater system that is not entirely composed of stormwater, with exceptions in Section 5. So basically, you cannot connect a floor drain from a like a repair garage, an overflow from a grease trap, and it's really kind of broad-reaching, but Section 5 deals with exemptions, and for the most, what we see mostly is flow from springs is allowed, and these again connections to our pipes, our culverts, our catch basins, Diverted stream flow is allowed, rising groundwater is allowed, so if you have a foundation drain, a basement drain, you can connect those. Uncontaminated groundwater, another connection, example of a type of permit that will be allowed. Discharge from landscape irrigation or lawn watering, so if you overwater and it spills down the street into a catch basin, that's fine as well. Discharge from non-stormwater discharge under an NPDES permit. Basically, it's tightening, clamping down on illegal connections to our drain system, which affects our water quality, both surface and groundwater quality. And the bottom line is we're now in the second phase, the second 5-year permit from the EPA to discharge our stormwater. This started 6 years ago. It actually started many years ago, but for large cities and towns, and we're in like the second tier. So we're in the second tier of towns that are affected by this. So we're in our second 5-year permit, and this is targeted by EPA for the second 5-year permit, along with stormwater mapping that, fortunately, we've been doing over the many years. And we have to abide by our discharge permit. We have to have regulations in place that that prohibits certain discharges to our stormwater system. Not only does it make sense environmentally, it's also a requirement of our second 5-year permit by EPA.
Any questions for Mr. Pearson? Hearing none, does Finance Committee have a recommendation?
Finance Committee has no recommendation on this article.
Board of Selectmen.
Board of Selectmen recommends approval.
Any debate with regard to the motion under Article 13? Hearing none, those in favor of the motion under Article 13, please raise your tickets. Those opposed? Unanimous.
Thank you.
Under Article 14, Mr. Hayward.
Mr. Moderator. Move
Yes, sir.
to waive reading of the article.
I have a motion by Mr. Hayward to waive the reading of Article 14. Any discussion? Those in favor, please raise your red tickets. Those opposed? Carries. Mr. Cohen.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator, and we welcome those of you at home who watched the Bruins defeat the Sabres 4-3. I'm going to ask Jim Pearson again to address this article. What this article is it comes before the community every 6 years. We have to update our federal floodplain maps in accordance with federal requirements. What the key message here is that there are no significant changes to the federal floodplain maps for the town of Chelmsford. Town meeting needs to approve this bylaw by June 4th in order to avoid the suspension of those property owners who are in the floodplain districts from losing or having their flood insurance suspended under the National Flood Insurance Protection Program.
Mr. Pearson?
In a nutshell, as Paul said, this is the FEMA updated the flood maps, and they basically went to a digital mapping. And the biggest change is they went from the old what they call a datum by way the process by which you measure vertical distances from the 1929 datum to the 1988 datum. And as Paul said, for the most part, it's just a remapping. It's all digital. It's gone statewide rather than town by town. There was no new study for Chelmsford, and basically just it updates the mapping, and we have to adopt it by June 4, 2010, to be a continued participant in the for eligibility for flooding in the FEMA insurance program.
Thank you. Any questions for Mr. Pearson? Hearing none, Finance Committee have recommendation.
Finance Committee recommends approval.
Board of Selectmen have recommendation.
Board of Selectmen recommends approval.
Planning Board have recommendation.
Planning Board by unanimous vote recommends approval.
Any discussion with regard to the motion under Article 14? Hearing none. This is a 2/3 vote as well. I'll try for unanimous vote. Those in favor of the motion under Article 13, please raise your tickets.
14.
Those opposed? Unanimous. Under Article 15, A motion by Mr. Cohen that the town vote to rescind its adoption of Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 90, Section 20A and a half, and accept the provisions of Chapter 90, Section 20A regarding parking regulations. Mr. Cohen?
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. I'm going to ask Chief Murphy, who's worked over the past few months with the Disabilities Commission, to explain the content of this article for the town's consideration.
Mr. Murphy?
Thank you.
Good evening. This article, Article 15, if approved, would allow the town to designate 2 individuals from the Commission on Disabilities to report handicap parking violations to our police department for enforcement. The violations would be reported to the police department by notice, affidavit, and photographs. The key to this article, again, it's report violations to our police department. Obviously, the goal of this program would be to achieve 100% compliance rate with the handicap parking laws that we have in town. The article would adopt Chapter 90, Section 20A in lieu of Chapter 90, Section 20A and a half. You're all having a motor vehicle law update class here, but local option does allow a community to decide which statute they want to enforce their parking laws under. We currently have 20A and a half. The key difference, 20A and a half, which is what we operate under now, the parking violation must be affixed or attached to the vehicle at the time of violation. The adoption of Section 20A would allow the parking violation to be issued within 5 days of the offense. According to the Massachusetts Office on Disability, there are between 20 and 30 cities and towns in Massachusetts that have these handicap parking patrol programs. I have personally spoke with the police chiefs in Framingham, Natick, Danvers, Waltham. They all report successful programs with no incidents or problems. The program, if established, would allow no more than 2 civilian monitors to be appointed by me with the approval from the Board of Selectmen. And the program, if adopted, would include training for these civilian monitors. We'd go over applicable state and local laws, procedures to avoid personal confrontation, and again, elements needed to document violations, which mainly would be notice and photo requirements. The submitted parking violations would be reviewed by a sworn police officer who will decide if ample evidence exists to issue that parking violation. If issued, the parking violation would be mailed to the owner of the motor vehicle along with the letter and copies of the photograph. That was out of order. But, over the past 3 years, we issue approximately 50 handicap violations across the town, and all fines that are collected from these handicap violations, they go to the Chelmsford Commission on Disabilities. They do not go into the town's general fund like other parking violations. And again, there's no intent to enforce any other parking regulation with these civilian monitors.
Any questions for Mr. Murphy? Chief Murphy?
Sam Chase, Precinct 1. Chief Murphy, do you have any idea of a projection on the number of violations that we would get that would be increased by adopting this program?
I wouldn't have an exact number. I would think it will increase. I don't see these 2 civilian monitors sitting out there 8 hours a day, but I see them conducting periodic checks when they're in the area. You may not know, and Lenny Olenchuk from the Disabilities Commission brought this to my attention. He is here. These are volunteers. They are not paid employees for the town. So again, two monitors. There'd be an increase, I would think, in violations,
okay,
as well as officers would still enforce the parking regulations.
Thank you very much.
Tom Ford, Precinct 7. Chief Murphy, quick question. You had mentioned a slide there where you said how the training would be. I don't see anything on that slide that said that they would be community access monitors. Would they be community access monitors doing this?
I'm not sure what it's a community.
A community access monitor is somebody that's trained by the Mass Office of Disabilities into handicap rules and regulations.
I'll have to check on that. Lenny Olenchek from the Disabilities Commission.
Okay. And the police department would still be enforcing the handicap regulations also, in other words, this would be in addition to the police department,
These
correct?
would supplement, yes. Police
Okay.
officers would still enforce all parking violations.
Okay, thank you very much.
Hi, Steve Flynn, Precinct 3. Chief, a lot of handicapped people, they put their thing on the mirror. Sometimes they have tendency to forget. Under this program, do they have like a X amount of days to notify you they are handicapped? In other words, they won't put the plaque up so you look like they don't have it, but they actually do have it.
That's a frequent occurrence now. What
Yes.
those people can do is request a hearing, and I can tell you, when they do come in and produce the plaque card, if it's with that vehicle, belongs to that vehicle, the parking violation is dismissed. But
Thank
that's
you.
a frequent problem.
Thank you.
Dennis Sheehan, Precinct 4. Do we have any idea how much of a problem this is with people that are not supposed to be parking in these spaces doing this?
Well, there's at least 50 violations per year, and I can tell you that's not all of them. We do get called frequently from people going into the store. Unfortunately, by the time the officer does get there, the offending vehicle has left, but one violation is a problem in my view.
Is there any, is anybody looking to placard abuse? I mean, oftentimes you'll see people pop into these spaces, jump out of the car, run in, grab something, and it's like, wow, he's got a handicap placard, but there's nobody handicapped in this car. Who handles that, or is that even considered here?
We have enforced violations of the handicap placard. The fines for that are substantially higher. They go up to $500. It's a criminal complaint.
I mean, maybe they legally have it, but they don't have the handicapped person in their car?
Correct, that's a violation.
Okay, and the reason I ask that is because, my mother's in a walker.
Has to be a question.
Okay, I may have to come back for this one then. Okay, I do have another question. What happens to the money? What does this commission do with this funds?
Used for the Disabilities Commission purposes. Lenny, again, if you want to, Len Olenchuk from the Disabilities Commission.
The money, we pay the ADA coordinator. We have built ramps. We have bought furniture for people that can't afford it, wheelchairs. We give out scholarships. And I can tell you right now, it's not a money-making situation. Our budget right now is $250 from the town for some of our administrative things. And right now, I think in my account, we have, the commission's account, we have under $1,000. So this isn't a case that this is going to be money. All the money goes back. We've purchased defibrillators for the police, so that money all goes back.
So basically, it seems like whatever money's raised would go to good causes.
Yeah, and anyone can check our record.
Okay. Thank you.
Good evening, Mr. Olenchuk. How are you?
Hello, Mr. Hall.
Once again, my name is Thomas Fall, Precinct 7. The only, I agree with this. The only concern I have, which I will put in the form of a question, is do you realize that there's some legislation now in the State House, House 1964, that if it passes the House on third reading and is signed by the governor, will take all funds away from handicap commissions and give the funds to the cities and towns, which they will have to use for handicap accessibility. But do you realize that? And anybody do anything to try to, I think, stop that?
Of course I do, and we've contacted some of our legislators already. And if they do, to be honest with you, if it's going to be put to handicap use, we'll still do what we have to do, and we'll still meet, and we'll still do looking at buildings to see if they're handicap accessible. So yes, I do know about it.
Yes, and you are, I have to put this in the form of a question. You are contacting your legislators to ask them not to allow this law to pass, I
Yeah,
hope.
that's what I just said. Yeah,
Okay,
I have
thank you.
contacted them saying no.
Thank you.
Debbie Derry, Precinct 6 rep. If what you say is true, and if they forgot the placard on the seat, or they didn't put it up, and you took a picture of their license plate, how can you prove who drove the car? Because you would never know. And I don't know if I agree with someone taking a picture of the license plate, because,
Well, that's part of debate, though.
yeah, all right. So how do you prove it? It isn't like the cameras that you would propose for Drum Hill and Stedman Street as people were going through red lights. This is different, because if they...
Now you're into debate again.
All right. I
think you've asked your question. He can answer the question.
Okay.
Go ahead.
How do you prove it?
What you're describing would be a violation. If they request the hearing, the facts would just have to be presented. And again, there's certain discretion, as with any parking ticket. It's a police officer, a superior officer at the police department who conducts that hearing, and he'd weigh the facts. He or she would weigh the facts.
Maria Carafellis, Precinct 2, Town Meeting Rep. The only concern I think I have here is liability.
We're not expressing concerns at this
Okay.
point. We're trying to
The
obtain
question I
information
have-
to help you understand.
Okay. The question I have is, how are you going to handle liability for the persons that are taking the pictures in the event of confrontations, or they get hurt or something happens? Do you have a plan for liability?
Yeah, the town has a volunteer liability policy for all officials who volunteer their time on behalf of the community, whether they're disabilities commission officials or members of the planning board and so forth. So we do have that coverage in effect.
Oh, great, thank you.
Any other questions?
Mike Combs, Precinct 6. The example you gave was somebody calls in and they report that somebody is parked probably illegally in a handicapped spot. So how does this change this? Are you going to dispatch the civilian to
No.
to take a
No.
photo?
What happens if someone calls in a handicap violation and the officer gets there? Most of the time, the people aren't reporting a plate number. But if they did, and that car has left, what we operate under now does not allow us to issue that violation. It's a past offense. Well, it's not up there, but
Okay.
20A would allow within 5 days, if an officer had reasonable cause to believe that a parking violation had taken place, could issue that citation.
Okay. And somebody leaves the pass on their seat or whatever and gets reported. When they want to go for a hearing, where is that hearing and what are the hours for that?
It's at the police department, usually held on Saturdays between 8 a.m. and 4 p.m.
So they don't have to miss a day of work and drive to Cambridge or
And we're
something.
very flexible if they
Okay.
can't make it on a weekend.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Patrick Hayes, Precinct 1. Chief, these two people that will be appointed, how long will the appointment be for, and who will supervise this appointment? Who will they report to, basically? Will it be you, the selectman?
No, they'll be under my guidance. They'll be supervised.
And how long would that
report to the
appointment be
police
for?
department. I'm sorry?
How long would the appointment be for?
I would think yearly. I think that might be up to the Board of Selectmen, as they would approve the appointments.
Any other questions? Hearing none, does the Finance Committee have recommendation?
Finance Committee recommends approval.
Board of Selectmen?
Board of Selectmen recommends approval.
Any debate with regard to the motion under Article 15?
Dennis Sheehan, Precinct 4. Yeah, I guess my question is, or maybe it's not a question. I have a mother who's been in a walker for a number of years, and I don't have a placard for her. And I've also driven people around that are in walkers, and you have to pull into these spaces to unload the person, move your car, park it someplace else while they're kind of standing idling by their walker in order to avoid a ticket and that sort of thing. I always do that. I mean, it's kind of troublesome, but I do that. And then as I'm parking my car, I see someone come in that does have a placard, pop out of the bank and run to the bank, and they're ahead of both of us. And it really troubles me the way that works. And I don't know how do you handle those things. I mean, if I were to leave my car there, walk my mother into the bank, I'm going to come back with a $200 ticket at some point, or I'm going to get something in the mail saying, hey, you got a $200 ticket now.
100 right now.
What's that?
100 right now.
100 right now, yeah. Soon to be 200, I'm sure. But I mean, these spaces are certainly a good thing to have if you have a handicapped person. If you have someone in a walker, they're great. But getting the placards are not easy. It's, you know, especially if you're doing temporary stuff, you're doing someone a favor, you're taking someone someplace. I just find it's troublesome. I think if there's a police officer there and sees it, they would actually see the situation when you get a person with a walker, as they're putting the ticket on, you're walking them back out again, they say, oh my God, sorry about that, I'll take the ticket off. Maybe they won't. Maybe they'll say, hey, no placard, buddy, $200. I don't know how they'd handle it. I'd like to think they'd use discretion. I don't know if this picture thing would work under those conditions. You know, I don't want to see people that aren't supposed to use the spaces use them, but I don't really know if I like this particular proposal. Thank you.
I would just comment that no one can give you permission to park in a handicap parking spot that's marked without a placard. So you can imagine how that would stretch. And
Well, sure. No, tell that to my mother. She'd probably argue that. I think she doesn't have a cane.
Just to set your mind at ease, the two of us that are going to be doing it work full-time, and we're not around in Chelmsford, so this is not going to be something that, if it throws the fear of God into you, great, but it's not going to be something you have to worry about.
Tom Fobb, Precinct 7. I know I had a lot of questions on this, and I have looked at it a lot. I've talked to the Mass Office of Disabilities on this, and a few years back, I probably would have been saying, I think this is a bad idea, but today I think it's a good idea, because I just think that they've thought it through, and I think they've come up with some good ways of getting around some of the issues I know I had, and I would recommend you vote for this.
Any other discussion with regard to Article 15? Hearing none, those in favor of the motion under Article 15, please raise your ticket. Those opposed, motion carries. Under Article 16, I have a motion by Mr. Cohen that the town vote to amend paragraph B of section 174-5, handicap parking of the Code of the Town of Chelmsford, by increasing the fine from $100 to $200 for unauthorized parking of a motor vehicle in a space reserved and designated for use by vehicles of handicapped persons pursuant to the authority of Mass General Laws, Chapter 40, Section 21. Mr. Cohen?
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. As Chief Murphy just noted, the current fine for parking in handicapped space is $100. State law allows the community to set a fine for handicap parking violations between $100 and $300. It's a recommendation of the chief and the Disabilities Commission, and I support that recommendation. Would ask you to approve the increase to $200 level. Thank you.
Any questions for Mr. Cohen? Hearing none, Finance Committee have recommendation?
Finance Committee recommends approval.
Board of Selectmen?
Board of Selectmen recommends approval.
Any debate with regard to the motion under Article 16? Yes, sir.
Mike Combs, Precinct 6. I just want to say that I think, $100 ticket is nasty enough, that seems quite sufficient to dissuade people from parking there, along with increased enforcement, that I just don't think we need to go to $200. That's all.
Any other debate with regard to Article 16?
Brian Latina, Precinct 4. You're waiting. I have a son that's handicapped, 26 years old, and I've had to drag his wheelchair over someone's car to get it back into my van. I've had to park on curbs that I couldn't access. I'm not handicapped, but Matthew has a placard that allows him to access our buildings. Very often the building that we're accessing through the handicap accessible door is locked. Elevators are locked. That means Matthew can't go places that you or I can go. We're all one head injury away from being in a wheelchair. These ramps with sand on them, or a car quickly parked in front of a store so you can run in and just get one thing, blocks an elderly person from being able to go in. Might be your mom, might be your dad. This funding should be enforced, because that extra $100 will go to giving a scholarship to someone that's had a head injury. Might be one of your kids, one of your parents, might be you someday that needs that little extra help, maybe to get a scholarship or to access a building. I can tell you that $100 for a quick stop at a store, that extra $100 will stop you from doing it again. And I've been stopped getting out of my own van and challenged by civilians that don't have the authority to do so. And I'm always happy to have them challenge me and then have me open the door and help Matthew out of the van and bring the ramp down and bring him out. It's a great program where this money goes right back into the handicap accessible area, and I guess if you got a $200 fine, you won't be parking there again. So I'm going to vote yes on this, and I would hope that the rest of the folks in Chelmsford would do the same. Thanks.
Rick Mahoney, Precinct 8. I just have a question for Chief Murphy. The question is there a surcharge imposed by the insurance companies for parking, for these parking violations?
There is not.
Okay.
Only moving violations.
Only
Certain
moving violations. Okay, I just wanted to clarify that. So if we vote on this $200 will go toward the disabilities and not toward the town. So my understanding is Article 16 is tied into Article 15.
Somewhat.
Somewhat. Okay.
You are correct. Yes, there's no surcharge on a parking
There is.
violation.
Okay. Thank you.
Carol Kelly-Selesky, Precinct 5. In the event that this body isn't comfortable raising the fee to $200 automatically, is there a way to follow up with repeat offenders? If you are ticketed once for $100, can you be ticketed a second time for $200? Or is that too much paperwork?
That could be done. It certainly involves more work as far as tracking. But there is, again, there's some discretion at that hearing. Fines have been reduced in certain circumstances. I would also note that the $100 fine was implemented in 1993. We went from $50 to $100. So it's been 17 years at $100. But most of your major cities, Lowell is $300, Cambridge, Boston, and there are several other communities. The statute was just changed maybe a year ago, maybe a little longer, allowing the parking fines to be increased up to $300. So I know there are other towns looking at it, but most
So
of
would
the-
you say at this time we're kind of behind the 8 ball?
I wouldn't say we're behind it, but a lot of your cities are, and I know a couple of towns right around us are looking at increasing theirs as well, but that has not happened as of yet. So
thank
we're the
you.
leader in that sense.
Karen DiDonato, Precinct 8. I'd support this. I mean, you're parking in a handicapped spot. It's illegal, so pay $200. I know somebody who parked illegally in a handicapped spot. It was not me. Up in New Hampshire, $250. They'll never do it again.
Mr. Moderator, I'd like to move the question.
I have a motion to move the question. That is a motion to curb debate and go on to a vote on the main motion. Those in favor of the motion to move the question, please raise your tickets. Those opposed? It's unanimous. Those in favor of the motion under Article 16, please raise your tickets. Those opposed? Motion carries. Under Article 17, I have a motion by Mr. Cohen that the town vote to hear.
Mr. Moderator.
Mr. Hayward.
Reading of the article.
I have a motion to waive the reading of Article 17. Any discussion? Those in favor, please raise your tickets. Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. I'm going to call upon Bob Morris, the chairman of the Community Preservation Committee, to do the presentation of the Community Preservation Committee report and budget for the upcoming fiscal year.
Mr. Morris.
Hi. Supposed to give a report. This is the first part of the article, so I'll give a brief report. This is the red one. Point at the projector. So I wanted to thank former Selectman Claire Janot for her term of service. She really helped out a lot in this last year on the Community Preservation Committee with her, especially with her background from the Finance Committee. So I just wanted to give her our appreciation. Also in the committee we have a 9-member committee. Linda Prescott is the representative from the Historic Commission, Beth Logan from the Conservation Commission, David Hedison from Affordable Housing, Jim Lane from the Planning Board, Jim Pearson from Parks and Recreation, Evan Belansky is the Director of Community Development and a member of the committee, and we have 2 citizen representatives, Rebecca Markey and Bob Morse, and we need a selectman appointee. So, selectman will come up with one soon, I'm sure. For fiscal year 2010, coming to an end in July, we're projected to raise in surcharge $793,301. We're projected to get a state match for the previous fiscal year, from the fiscal 2009 surcharge. We should be receiving a check in October for $260,838, and that is approximately 34% of the total surcharge that we received for fiscal 2009. The surcharge has been dropping in recent years for a couple of reasons. Mostly, more and more communities have been passing community preservation, and it's just a finite pot of money that it comes from, and the money is raised from surcharges at the Registry of Deeds for title transfers and whatnot, and that has dropped somewhat over the years, but this last year has actually had done a little bit better, so the surcharge is a few percent higher than it was anticipated to be. So for fiscal 2010, we be receiving a total of a little over $1 million in community preservation surcharges and state match. And if you work it out in your tax bill, if you divide the surcharge into the total tax bill, you come up with about a little over 1% of your total tax bill is what it is in surcharge. We have a couple of exemptions. There's a $100,000 exemption taken from your property tax, from your property value before the surcharge is computed, and that's why it ends up being a little over 1%. The surcharge on the property value after the $100,000 exemption, it's 1.5% of the property surcharge that would be computed on that value. There's a couple of exemptions for if you're a senior property owner and you meet the moderate income limits, which in 2009 was $70,720 for a family of 2 with a senior property owner. You can apply for an exemption and not pay any surcharge at all for a CPA. If you're a under 65 property owner who meets the low income limits, which for 2009 was $70,720 also for a family of 4, then you can also apply and receive an exemption from the CPC surcharge. And this is a spreadsheet that shows all the projects that have been accomplished using CPC money over the past number of years since we started in 2001 receiving the surcharge, and our first monies were expended in 2002. So just quickly going down them, we had expended different sums of money in fiscal year 3, 5, and 6 for affordable buy-downs at the Courtyard condominiums in Littleton Road. Sheila Ave was just a water demand fee that helped make that project possible. The largest expenditure to date for affordable housing is for the Harding Street project, which is underway right now, and the large building is at about a 10% completion. The foundation is in, and the special needs housing portion is completed. So the total amount for affordable housing to date is about $687,700 have been spent. Open space, a small sum was expended back in 2002 for the Red Wing Farm acquisition. A few sums for parking lots at Lime Quarry, Red Wing Farm, at the Cranberry Bog for a construction of a dam in a parking lot for $60,000. The big kahuna was the Lewis Farm acquisition a few years back for $1.5 million. And Pond Street acquisition just last year for $230,000. So the largest amount of money so far has gone for open space at $1,869,466 to date, of which the majority is the Lewis Farm acquisition. And historic preservation has been the smallest amount so far. There's been various sums that have been expended for preserving cemeteries, for doing work on stabilizing markers and keeping some of our several historic cemeteries in good shape. Middlesex Canal Survey, back in fiscal year '04, North Town Hall stabilization, where we put a roof on North Town Hall and buttoned it up and helped save it for hopefully what will pass in tonight's effort to do a thorough restoration. Varney Park study of $20,000, which has not been expended to date. That can be used for doing basically a master plan for the Varney Park area. And the Barrett Byam House of $50,000 in fiscal year '09. So total amount that has been either expended
Mr. Morris, I think your papers are covering that button on that microphone there, just every once in a while.
Okay, sorry. Total amount is $2,800,000 over the last few years since the inception of community preservation. Open space is almost 67% of the total. Affordable housing is close to 25%, and historic preservation to date is about 8.75%. And for the future, we've been having some discussions on doing some improvements at the Pond Street Beach for an open space project. Since the Pond Street was purchased with community preservation funds, we can use money for basically what would amount to recreational improvements. So improving parking, beach, picnic areas down at Pond Street is something we could look forward to in the future. There's still a number of Chapter 61 properties, a couple hundred acres, that if and when they come up for sale, if the owner decides to sell them, the town has the right of first refusal. And that's always an opportunity to add to our open space inventory. And we're always looking for open space that's adjacent to existing protected land is the best way to expand open space uses and create wildlife corridors and get the most benefit out of an open space purchase. Historic preservation, the 1802 brick schoolhouse down at the corner of Four Fathers Cemetery needs some renovation work, and that we anticipate will be coming in at some point in the near future. And affordable housing, I'm sure that David Hedison will continue to use his multiplying ability to take smaller sums of money and leverage them to get state and federal housing to create badly needed affordable housing. Particular interest, that was mentioned by Jim Lane for master plan, is the UMass West Campus, which would be a great multi-use project and could have an affordable housing component to it. And swinging into the next part of the article, for fiscal year 2011, the anticipated surcharge is $813,134, which is basically 2.5% more than previous year's surcharge. The anticipated state match is projected to be about 31% next year, and for $245,923. So the total is fairly close to what we raised in surcharge for 2010, because the state match is slowly dropping down. There is a piece of legislation, Senate Bill 90, which we hope passes, which would raise that state match to a guaranteed minimum of $75,000. Excuse me, 75% of the total budget.
We lost the mic again here.
So I'll try to speak loud when I hear my voice dropping down. So the total of $1,059,057. So of that, we would like to set $50,000 aside for administration. The administration is used for appraisals and surveys.
Well, apparently it wasn't your papers on the button, Mr. Moore.
How's that? Is it on? Testing, testing. Okay, so we'll try to work it from here. So for administration, $50,000. Administration is used for appraisals and surveys. It's used also for, we used it, $14,000 of it for the town hall cost estimates done by Kang Associates. And for the next fiscal year, $25,000 is going to be allocated for master plan, for portions of the master plan that affect the community preservation, the affordable housing, and open space and recreation. So every year we do 10% set-asides, which are required, and that amounts to $106,000 that need to be put into each of the three categories of open space, historic preservation, and affordable housing. And then we'd like to put the remainder into the budgeted reserve of $622,000. This sheet here is, I don't know if you can read it in your books, but this is a very important sheet, and this relates more to the future articles that will be coming up. And this shows that basically in the three accounts, still seems like it's cutting out. Open space is $125,625 in the open space account. Historic preservation, $444,726. And affordable housing has $413,291. And our undistributed balance, there's $2,462,591. So this is money that has been collected and exists at this current time. You hear me? Okay, so for our fiscal year 2011, with the anticipated amount that we'd be taking in for fiscal year 2011, we show that we could fund all the projects that you're going to be hearing about tonight for the various town halls and the affordable housing articles and the open space articles. And still, at the end of it all, we will have $1,227,000 remaining in the undistributed balance, and that would continue to be increased by a little over $500,000 per year, even with paying off the bond that we anticipate taking out for the town hall projects. That's basically it for Article 17.
Any questions for Mr. Morse on Article 17?
Should try going back to there.
center mic was working, I think, more than the other one.
Thank you. Steve Flynn, Precinct 3. Bob, I noticed on your surcharge exemptions, like senior property owners are exempt if they make less than $70,000, and also property owners. How are they notified of this exemption? There's a lot of folks here in town, as you're well aware, that Chelmsford is the #1 in the senior circuit breaker.
I think that question is fine. Let's wait for the answer.
I'm just curious how they would be notified.
There was a mailing that was sent out when it was first adopted a few years ago. A mailing went out to every single taxpayer at that time. But
is there some better way to notify them that that's a good chunk of change for a senior or a person under $70,000?
so I think the suggestion would probably be that we could request that the appropriate department send out a mailing, an additional mailing.
Yeah, that'd be appreciated.
To give a reminder of those
Thank you.
exemptions. Yeah.
Any other questions? Hearing none, does the Finance Committee have recommendation?
Finance Committee recommends approval.
Board of Selectmen?
Selectmen recommends approval.
Any debate with regard to the motion under Article 17? Hearing none, those in favor of the motion under Article 17, please raise your tickets. Those opposed? It's unanimous. Under Article 18, I have a motion by Mr. Cohen that the town vote to appropriate the sum of $2,560,000 to fund the restoration and preservation of the town hall, including related survey, legal, and other costs incidental related thereto, and to meet said appropriation that the town transfer $444,726 from the Community Preservation Fund Historic Preservation Reserve, transfer $715,274 from the Community Preservation Fund General Reserve, and borrow $1.4 million pursuant to General Laws, Chapter 44, Section 7 or 8, or Chapter 44B, Section 11, or any other enabling authority, and that the Board of Selectmen be authorized to take any other action necessary to carry out this project. Mr. Morse?
So this article is for the complete renovation, restoration of Center Town Hall. I think most of you have probably attended or gone on tours of Center Town Hall and seen a lot of the material. I don't have, and I apologize, many pictures to show for the Center Town Hall or for the North Town Hall, but we'll describe it. So for Center Town Hall, the big cost for Center Town Hall is adding handicap accessibility to the town hall. Currently, now there's sort of a mishmash of ramps and accesses to get into the building, and then there's a sort of a stair glide apparatus in the back to allow you to get up to the stage floor. What this article would do, what the renovation would do, it would take down the addition in the back of Center Town Hall. It would replace it with a new structure that would be carefully designed to look historically appropriate, and it would access all, it would be basically the ground, first floor, and second floor. It would be tall enough to have an elevator inside that would access all the different floors. This addition would also have a handicap entrance off the back of it. Would be very amenable for handicapped people to be able to enter the building from the parking lot, from the back parking lot. I would have in the same addition would have an elevator to all 3 floors. It would have a stairwell to all 3 floors, and it would have handicap accessible bathrooms on the first floor. The renovations also include upgrading the bathrooms on the first floor to meet the assembly requirements for the amount of people that could be using the theater facility on the second floor and for the capacity of the building. There would also be a handicap-accessible bathroom on the ground floor. There would be a catering kitchen added on the ground floor, and there would be a revising of the interior spaces to meet the needs of for the occupants of the building. One of the questions I asked when we were hearing from Kang Associates for the elevator is, why can't it be done for less money? Why can't the elevator be put on the inside of the building and not have to put in the addition? And basically, the interior of the building is under a preservation restriction. And to put an elevator in the inside, you would be severely disturbing the interior of the building. If you put it in the front, you would be having to mess with all the stairways in front. If you put it in the back of the building, you would be disrupting the stage area. So there just was no method that an elevator could be put in without putting on an addition to the back of the building. So that's really the big cost driver for Center Town Hall, and that's something that it needs to be done. It needs to have an elevator to give access to the handicapped and to the population that needs to use, that will want to use the building. They'll want to have an elevator there. Also, for Center Town Hall, there's extensive building system upgrades and replacement. Plumbing systems get completely revamped. Electrical systems, new electrical feeds to the building. Totally revamped heating, ventilation, air conditioning system, completely air-conditioned building. The installation's brought up to the latest standards to make it the most energy-efficient building that it could be and keep the heating costs down. The costs include full exterior restoration of the exterior of the building for all the corners of it and the doors, the exterior windows, all the millwork that is needed to bring the building up to the historic standards, all paintings and finishes for the building. So basically, what you end up with is a complete top-to-bottom restoration of the building, and it will be beautiful, and it will last for the next 20 years of community use. And it will be handicap accessible, and it will be, as Susan Gates has demonstrated to us, used for the Center of Performing Arts, and it will be a really nice asset to the town. The total estimated cost from Kang Associates was $2,560,000. These cost estimates were very conservatively done. They include cost escalation percentage for that, includes a 10% construction contingency, includes all the design fees, project management fees, all the project costs, and project contingency. And the way we would pay for this is to basically, as the first part of the warrant shows, we would basically use half of our existing undistributed funding and the money in the historic preservation account, and then we would bond out over 10 years the remainder of it for both projects. Looking at the article, the finance sheet, if both articles pass, we would be borrowing $2.8 million paid back over 10 years, which would, the first year payment in fiscal year 12 would be $378,000, and then decreasing amounts over the next 10 years. All that funding comes from the community preservation surcharge. There's no additional increase in the surcharge amount for community preservation. There's nothing coming from the general budget. It's all from existing funding, and it's all from future funding for community preservation. And in the accounting of the monies that I have on the sheet there, everything's done as conservatively as possible, where I'm not including any interest accumulation on existing funds. Of course, interest is pretty low right now anyways, but we feel quite confident that if all the articles pass, we'll still have funding future open space projects, historic projects, and affordable housing projects. That's basically it.
Any questions for Mr. Morris?
Christine Howard, Precinct 9. Right now, I know the Chelmsford Food Pantry is located in the Chelmsford Town Hall. How does the plan affect their ability to stay there and their space?
I think that, Paul, you might want to step in on this, but it has to do with future uses.
Yeah, the facility as constructed would still have space available on the ground floor to accommodate the food pantry's use in the future. But there will be a temporary displacement of the building during construction because it's unavoidable with the work that Bob described. But long term, there would be space on the ground floor for that designated use, and it was sort of designed with the architect in mind that you could have a segregated use as it is now on the ground level.
And will the town work with Sandy Donovan to find a spot for her in that temporary? It's a huge population.
We not only have to work with her, but we have to work with the Chelmsford Center for the Arts for all the people who are going to be displaced. Basically, if this article is approved, you'd basically be looking at design work and bidding work through probably the end of the calendar year, and then basically starting late next winter into next year's construction season, we would have to find temporary facilities for all those uses, probably for the calendar year 2011.
Okay, thanks.
Cheryl Perkins, Precinct 5. I understand from the presentations that the operating expenses of the building will be covered by the revenues generated from the use of the building. My question is, what about the future capital costs for the building? The first thing that comes to mind is this applies to Center and North Town Hall. They're both big, old wooden buildings. And this is New England, and they're going to need to be painted on a regular basis. Does that become part of the town's capital budget, or because they're historic, can CPC funds be used? How are we going to keep, I have complete faith that this is a great way to get these buildings to look good. How are we going to keep them looking good and in good working order?
Yeah, so that's a good question. And CPC funds, you can view them as basically being able to use for capital improvement projects. We cannot use CPC funds for reoccurring expenses such as annual maintenance. The intent would be that with all this top to bottom restoration, that the buildings are going to be in good enough shape so that the need for capital improvements is going to be minimized for quite a period of time.
But how about painting specifically? That really bothers me because I look at that building next to the library. I think it used to be the pink house, now it's the yellow house. We buttoned it up, we spent money at town meeting on it, and it's an eyesore. It's got yellow police tape up on it last time I looked. So that's what I want to know about both of these projects. How are we going to take care of things like that?
Yeah, the responsibility in terms of the daily administration would fall under public facilities. As was noted by Dave Duane, the chair of the Permanent Building Committee, we have 28 existing buildings in the town that we care for. These would fall under that umbrella and would continue to fall under that umbrella. And in respect to the Dutton House, it's one of our goals in the upcoming season, once we finish town meeting, working with public facilities and the library trustees and the Friends of the Libraries, Finance Committee and so forth, is we are going to address the future of that facility because you're right, it does warrant attention.
Okay, but these, because they're historic buildings, we can't use...
You cannot use community preservation funds for maintenance of any facility. The community preservation fund is for capital reinvestment and reconstruction. Basically, the day-to-day maintenance, the painting, and those kind of issues fall under the town's responsibility for, as we do with all of our buildings in town.
So we're making a commitment to take care of these buildings on the town side.
Yes. In fact, some of you may recall, we appropriated an article as part of the capital budget a year ago to repaint the exterior of the Center Town Hall.
Right.
But with all this work taking place, we postponed that investment because it wouldn't make sense to paint it and then go out and rip out and do a lot of work on the siding and the windows and so forth. So yeah, we've made that commitment and we'll continue to make that commitment into the future.
Thank you.
Hi, Lynn Lowell, Precinct 7. My question for you is where the Center Town Hall is located, as it gets busier and busier, we found that people are parking and blocking the access way from the Domino's and Carvin Catering in order to come around and get the light to exit in that lot area. There's no parking signs. Do you know if they'll be putting some?
Yes. You also may recall, we just expanded the paved parking surface area in the back of the town hall building, and as we go out, now that the weather's improved in the spring, we'll be addressing the signage and the striping of that facility.
Okay, because it's been blocked the last few times I've been by there.
But it's not the reason that Domino's is leaving. They're relocating.
Oh, I didn't know they were leaving.
No, they're relocating on Chelmsford Street where the Blockbuster Video is going, but that's been in the works for some time.
Okay, thanks.
Any other questions? Hearing none, does the Finance Committee have recommendation?
Finance Committee recommends approval.
Board of Selectmen?
Board of Selectmen recommends approval.
Any debate with regard to the motion under Article 18?
George Merrill, Precinct 2. I'm the chair of the Chelmsford Historical Commission. The commission would like to state their support, their strong support, for the preservation and restoration of both Chelmsford town halls using community preservation funds. North Town Hall, built in 1853, is Chelmsford's first town hall. Center Town Hall, built in 1879, served as a town hall and town offices for much of its life. The commission deems both buildings historically significant and an important asset to the town. The committee voted unanimously to support Articles 18 and 19. Thank you.
Thank you.
Dennis Reddy, Precinct 8. I'm not going to move the question. I just want to say that I couldn't be prouder of the two committees that worked on getting these town halls so that they're going to be production and helping the town. And, you know, I've been to a lot of town meetings over the years, and we get a lot of new members, and I want to point this out, that once in a great while, a couple of articles like 18 and 19 come along that you can call a no-brainer. This is it, okay? When we vote these in, Chelmsford will have taken the task that the Economic Development Committee put to us and said, Chelmsford gets it done. So get it done and vote yes.
Peggy Dunn, Precinct 1. I just want to echo Dennis also. Of all the buildings in the town, these are probably 2 of the 10 most important buildings in the town. And we, as the town, really, this is a wonderful thing to do, to keep these buildings alive and being used and to guard them, because they're very important symbols to the town. Thank you.
Any other debate with regard to the motion under Article 18? This too requires a 2/3 vote. Those in favor of the motion under Article 18, please raise your tickets. Those opposed? Chair recognizes a 2/3 vote.
Thank you.
Under Article 19, I have a motion by Mr. Cohen that the town vote to appropriate the sum of $2,850,000 to fund the restoration and preservation of North Town Hall, including related survey, legal, and other costs incidental and related thereto, and to meet said appropriation that the town transfer $1.45 million from the Community Preservation Fund General Reserve, borrow $1.4 million pursuant to the General Laws, Chapter 44, Section 7 or 8, Chapter 44B, Section 11, or any other enabling authority, that the Board of Selectmen be authorized to take any other action necessary to carry out this project. Mr. Morse?
Thank you. This is the article for North Town Hall, and beautiful old historic building in North Town Hall in North Chelmsford. Before I go further, I am remiss on I've done like nothing for these articles. It's all the work of the various committees, the Town Hall Utilization and Study Committee and Permanent Building Committee, and the committee from North Chelmsford has been fantastic and working so hard to generate support and come up with ideas and plans for North Town Hall and the group for Center Town Hall for all they've done, and the Performing Arts Center there is just great. So all I'm doing is presenting. So North Town Hall, we've all been driving by it for a long, long time, looking at this poor and increasingly dilapidated building in North Chelmsford that is just such a great symbol of the town, or could be such a great symbol of the town. And now we have an opportunity to bring this building back into life again, and to make it live and breathe and have a use and be beautiful again. So Article 19 seeks to accomplish that. North Town Hall is currently totally gutted in the interior. It was gutted a number of years ago, and it's just been sitting in that state. So this article would be a complete rebuild and restoration of the interior. It would add a handicap accessible entrance to the side. There would be a handicap accessible parking space right outside that, right near the entrance. It would add an elevator near the front of the building that would give handicap access to all the floors. You would have handicap bathrooms on each floor. There'd be a wheelchair lift to the stage. There would be first floor bathrooms that would meet the assembly use code of meeting the capacity of the building, which is estimated to be 130 persons for the auditorium area. There'd be a catering kitchen on the first floor. There'd be a flexible first floor layout to meet the needs of the uses for the building. The auditorium would be completely restored. All new building systems, all new plumbing, electrical, HVAC systems, insulation, state-of-the-art insulation to keep the cost of heating and air conditioning at a minimum. North Town Hall needs some structural repairs and some improvements, some strengthening. The rear foundation area is been kicking out and needs to be lifted and basically redone. Floor and roof framing needs to be strengthened, gusseting and additional framing put in to make bring the floor up to the standards that of modern building code. Total exterior restoration, take off the vinyl siding, replace and restore the existing clapboards on the building, replace the windows depending upon what makes the most sense and what is the most aesthetically pleasing historically. There would be a big issue for North Town Hall has been parking, but there's actually quite a bit of space behind and to the side of the North Fire Station, and is estimated, I believe it's like 40 spaces could be provided for parking for the events for North Town Hall, which would be sufficient parking. So basically this project to completely redo North Town Hall to bring it back to life would really transform that the section of North Chelmsford. It would be beautiful. It would be the centerpiece of North Chelmsford. The total estimated cost for this project is $2.85 million, also including escalation, construction contingencies, all design fees, project management and project costs, and project contingency. I should also add, if these projects are done together, because it would be over $5 million of construction that needs to be done, it would likely attract the better construction firms, the bigger construction firms. It becomes very interesting once it becomes a larger than $5 million project. If they're done together also, there'll be substantial savings in design fees if it's done by one company doing both projects simultaneously. It will be a more economical and a smoother process. So I just wanted to add that. That's it.
Any questions for Mr. Morris?
Kirk Marshall, Precinct 4. How many parking spots are at the North Town Hall?
Right now, there's no dedicated parking for North Town Hall. The uses of the building in the past have existed on basically on-street parking.
And that on-street parking will accommodate 130 people?
No, there's going to be parking added behind the North Fire Station, and to the side of the North Fire Station is estimated to be about 40 spaces. Paul?
And there have also been discussions with the churches that are immediately adjacent to the property about allowing parking for North Town Hall activities there to have the overflow met and that need. So the plan, and the town does have a further additional parking located further down into North Chelmsford Center at Vinyl Square. So we believe that we have areas and agreements in which to address the parking needs for a 130-person event that would take place, which would be the maximum capacity.
Okay. And you mentioned that it's gutted and there's some structural issues with the building. Is there a chance that once they get into construction, they'll uncover deeper issues that might require further investment?
Because it is gutted, they were able to see everything. It's all completely open. So they did a very thorough inspection of the building, and there should be no future surprises, and that's why there's a 10% construction contingency for any, if there were some additional issues that had to be dealt with.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions under Article 19? Hearing none, does the Finance Committee have recommendation?
Finance Committee recommends approval.
Board of Selectmen?
Board of Selectmen recommends approval.
Any debate with regard to the motion under Article 19?
Sam Polton, Precinct 8. I'd like to echo what people had said about Article 18 first. Tremendous pride in what the committees have done. But more importantly, passing Article 19 will really prove that Chelmsford gets it done. This does everything that the town needs to do to present the two-village concept. And as it says there, transform the North Town Hall into the centerpiece of North Chelmsford. Not just a centerpiece in architecture, but a centerpiece in community living at its best. So I'm hoping that I'll be the last speaker and that everybody will unanimously approve Article 19 and show that Chelmsford really does get it done. Let's vote yes on this and bring North Chelmsford into the fold and have a beautiful old town hall that's new. Thank you.
Sorry, Sam. I don't feel the need to repeat things other people have said.
But you do have to say your name and precinct number.
Claire Janot, Precinct 7. But I have to say that this is one of the projects advanced in the last 3 years that I am incredibly proud of. I think that the people that worked on the Town Hall Utilization Study Committee have stayed with this through a lot of conversation and know in their heart that there's an operation that probably will bring a vitality to that area that hasn't been there in a very, very long time. And I thank them for that. I know that there are a lot of people in this community that want these buildings to both remain open to all of the townspeople. And I thank them for that. And I know that we have citizens in this town that have worked so hard on this because they believe it'll happen, that I believe it'll happen too. I don't want to trust that the silence in this town meeting at the moment is a slam dunk vote. So I wanted to just say a couple of things. It is really, really time for this.
It has been a long, long time that building has stood empty, and we have figured out a way to do it professionally, to do it properly, to use it well. And if anything goes wrong with the uses of either of these buildings by these incredible volunteers over the next 5, 10, 15 years, we have a professional town manager who's going to figure out what to do with these 28 buildings the town owns, and I'm confident that they can both be used in a way that keeps them open to the public for a long time. We can't make new history. We need to take care of both of these buildings, so please, please vote yes.
Any other debate with regard to the motion under Article 19? Hearing none. This requires a two-thirds vote, too. I'll try for unanimous vote. Those in favor of the motion under Article 19, please raise your tickets. Those opposed? Chair recognizes a two-thirds vote.
Thank you.
I have a motion to adjourn to Thursday at 7:30 at the Senior Center. Is that correct? All those in favor, please raise your ticket. Those opposed? Unanimous.
Try to come a little closer if you can. All right. The people that walk in front.
Well, this has been a pretty interesting town meeting, and we're glad to see that it's ending now, and we'll be back with you on Thursday. Just to recap, for those of you who might have just turned in, it's been a really interesting night for the pluses and minuses. On one hand, the first time ever we have a $100 million budget for fiscal 2011 that was passed with very little comment or debate. This is Paul Cohen's fourth budget as town manager, and I think that the care with which he and Superintendent Don Yeoman put together the budget is evident, or maybe all of the questions had been answered previously during the week during the information sessions. In any case, the budget passed with hardly any comment at all. Likewise, the capital improvement budget for $2.5 million. One of the activities that had become basically a formality, Article 8, having to do with the property at 9 Alpha Road. This is going to be purchased by the town for the future home of the DPW, the Department of Public Works, after having passed by the voters in the previous election. And then, as you just heard, Articles 18 and 19 allowing a total of $5.4 million out of current and projected Community Preservation Commission funding to rehab completely and restore to their former glory the town halls in North Chelmsford and in the center of town. So it's been a very fulfilling evening in a lot of ways, and we hope you've enjoyed it. We'll be back with you on Thursday night, and we hope to see you then. For Kelly Beatty and the staff here at Chelmsford TeleMedia, have a good night. See you on Thursday.